All right, we'll return to the open meeting this evening, and we'll kick things off with our opening exercises with our pledges. Ms. Acosta.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. As the proud principal of Hart Elementary, I'm honored to introduce Elias Nakuda, one of our fabulous third grade students. He is known both in and out of school for his strong character traits, for commitment, dedication, resilience, and passion. In addition to maintaining high standards of excellence in his academics, he also plays select hockey for the only AAA team in Texas, the Dallas Stars Elite. He has been the recipient of 2 championships, including the 2024 state championships, where he was one of 2 players selected to play up in his division. Recently, he was named a National Western Conference team, and he is one of 5 defenders to represent the Western United States in the 5 Series tournament through Canada. The Western Select team will play over the spring and summer, and we will all be rooting for him. Elias's dedication both in and out of school truly represents the excellence that Lovejoy has in their students. Thank you for allowing him and honoring him as he leads us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
All right. Item 6 tonight, recognitions, introduction of new hires. Ms. Koenig.
Good evening, everyone. It is so nice to be here, and I am fortunate to introduce a new member of our team, a director of PEAMS and our district data support services, Laura Little. I have to tell you, Laura was just a godsend. She came from us from Forney ISD. She was director of PEAMS there. Before that, she was in Castleberry and was a coordinator for accountability and research in Castleberry. She's a former CTE teacher in Dallas and also has experience at the campus level as an administrator. So we're so fortunate to have Laura. Laura, I don't know if you all know, but as you can only imagine, we're in a new reporting system this year, the EdFi system, which is our student teaching data support system. It's been somewhat of a challenge. It's a new system that the state has basically shared with us, and so without her, she was just an integral part in us doing that. Her diligence, hard work, the amount of hours she has put in since she's been here has been just going above and beyond, and we're so fortunate to have Laura. So I want to introduce Laura Little. Would you come up there? Here's Laura. Laura and her husband Chris live right here in Allen. I think Chris is here with her tonight also. And she's a graduate from Tech and did her master's at the Texas A&M University there in Commerce. So we're glad to have Laura. Welcome. And we're going to get a picture, Laura, with you. Yes, and we're not done yet. We just did fall submission, and we have spring in about a month here. Okay, I'm going to ask Kyle if you'll come up.
Good evening. I would like to introduce to the board and the community Phil Anderton. Phil is the newest addition to the SRO unit here within the school district. We talked a little bit about Phil back in December. Phil actually came on board at the end of November and spent over 2 weeks away from his family, which lives here in the district. So he's got 2 kiddos and wife, Melissa. 2 kiddos he's got a daughter that's in 7th grade over at Willow, and he's got a senior at Lovejoy High School. But those first couple weeks, he was out of town, away from his family, away from the district, going through some pretty rigorous training. And so as you guys get to know Phil, you're going to learn that he is a very focused, task-driven, no-nonsense kind of guy, and likes to get things done and get them done swiftly. And so as soon as he came into the district, Phil went straight over and went through the 80-hour school marshal program. Right before that, he went through SWAT training. And so he comes in, he's ready to go. I think he's pretty excited to get going here in the district. But prior to joining Lovejoy, Phil served in the United States Navy for 20 years. And so after serving, Phil decided he wanted to get plugged in here in the community and serve here in the school district. And so we're very thankful for Phil and his leadership. And so Phil, if you don't mind coming on up and showing your face in front of the community tonight.
Okay. Last but not least, tonight we are happy to welcome Amber Pennell to Lovejoy ISD. Unfortunately, she could not be here with us. I promise you, she is not trying to skip out on a board meeting. She is attending a board meeting tonight. She's just fulfilling her obligations currently as the CFO in Salina. So we're excited to bring her on board. She's already hit the ground running. She came in last Thursday to kind of understand all of our systems and laying out the expectations, and she's already started to dive into some of our accounting software and some of the tasks that need to be done by the end of January. So she'll continue to work every Thursday for the rest of this month, and she'll be fully on board with the district on Monday, February 3rd. So she has, as I mentioned, she's currently the CFO in Salina. She's also filled a similar role as the CFO in Farmersville, and she brings a wealth of knowledge in educational finance business office. So we're excited to have her on board and looking forward to all of the things that she's going to accomplish on our team. So Amber and her husband Shane of 32 years, they're proud parents of 3 children, and then they do have 2 grandsons, and they are welcoming their 3rd grandchild, a granddaughter, in June. So.
All right. Any other new hires? Thank you very much, Ms. Cordell.
Good evening. January is School Board Appreciation Month, and we are appreciative. Our Board of Trustees is absolutely outstanding, and we are grateful for your leadership, your governance, your discernment. We are certainly in challenging times. School funding would be certainly one area. We have not had an increase to the basic allotment in 6 years, which has meant that as a Board of Trustees, you've been faced with some very difficult decisions, and throughout all of that, you continue to make the best possible decisions for our students and for our staff. And we could not be more grateful to have your leadership and your personal sacrifice. We know it is a great personal sacrifice for both you and your entire family when you serve in this leadership role. And we are so grateful, and prior to this meeting, I also want to thank the community for allowing us to adjust the time for this meeting. We did that because we have a very special tradition during our School Board Appreciation Month, and that is where our Lovejoy Visual Arts program comes, and our students and our teachers and leaders in that department have dinner with our Board of Trustees, and our visual arts students make something. They create artwork for our Board of Trustees that represents the important role that they have in our district. And the pairing of our Board of Trustees and that program and taking a moment to reflect is just the perfect pairing. Because of the leadership and governance of our Board of Trustees, programs like Lovejoy Visual Arts continue to thrive and be a model of excellence. And we could say that about many of the programs in our district. And so it's just great to take time to pause in gratitude and really connect and thank you all for the important role that you have. And I am going to hand it over to Mr. McCaslin, who leads our visual arts program for the district and is also a teacher at the high school.
The board and to our admin for the work that you do to ensure that we're able to give our students an experience that is unlike any other. Tonight I got to tell a little story about the work that they received, and this is one of my favorite traditions because there's nothing better than sharing these people that I love and I work with every day than sharing their gifts with the community. And I think that the board has done such an awesome job of seeing this community and hearing their needs and guiding this district in a way that allows our students to thrive. So tonight's piece that we gave the board is based on the idea of we reap what we sow. And growing up, for me, that never had good connotations. It was always something that my Sunday school teacher said to me, and I felt like it was because I'd done something wrong. And really, that saying became something else to me just recently because I was gifted with the opportunity to speak at the AP Higher Ed Symposium, where faculty from around the United States, from colleges, you name it, come to hear about AP program and what it can offer their school. And I was privileged to be able to go to the AP Higher Ed Symposium with a former student and current faculty at TCU, Eli Ruhala. And it was really a great experience for me because sometimes I think as teachers and probably as board members and as administration and staff, we're so busy doing the work that we forget to look around and pay attention to the fruits of our labor. And it was on that stage, and as I told them earlier, I was crying a little bit. That was okay. But it was on that stage listening to Eli Ruhala share his experience in the LJVA studio and how that not only directed his current path, but how that impacted his role as a teacher and his role as an artist and how that continues to lead him, that it really sank into me how important and how beautiful it is, the work that we do, and how we're no longer just planting these seeds. We're no longer a young district. We're a district that can look at the achievements of our students in all fields and be incredibly proud. And that pride and all that our students are achieving are because of the decisions and the guidance that you as a board have given us as a community. And so this painting, which is of beautiful flowers, is really a response because while I was crying on stage, I remembered that whenever I came here 18 years ago, I heard a story about Carrie Lovejoy and how she was so enthralled with this area and giving and sharing that beauty of this place with not only the kids of this area, but with the community, that she would throw wildflower seeds out of the train window. And it was that moment that I said, these are my wildflowers. This is the time where I get to see these things bloom. And I think it's important that we praise the board and honor them for the fact that our district is still blooming. Regardless of times being tough, they've made decisions that help our students thrive and put students first. And that's not an easy job. And so our appreciation to you for the decisions and the leadership that you offer is something that I hope you're reminded of every day that you see that painting of those flowers blooming, because we are truly in a time where our students are thriving in everything that they do. So thank you.
And if the board is agreeable, we would love to get a picture with you and with our Lovejoy Visual Arts program with the beautiful art that they created.
Yeah, and the board is just so grateful for the gratitude, the appreciation, and the beautiful works of art that we received tonight. It's really nice. Thank you. Dr. Zambezi?
All right, and so continuing with some Lovejoy Visual Arts impressive achievements. Members of the board, Superintendent Cordell, thank you so much for having us tonight. We're honored to specifically recognize 4 additional artists, and so I'll give you a little bit of background and then hand it off to our visual arts coordinator, Mr. McCaslin, to customize some information for you and explain the gravity and the impressiveness of these 4 accomplishments. And so Lovejoy ISD is proud to announce that 4 Lovejoy High School artists were chosen as 2025 Young Arts winners. Lane Beller, Dana Colston, Caroline Matthews, and Veronica Yee. And these students were recognized among 800 of the nation's most accomplished emerging artists in the visual, literary, and performing arts. Mr. McCaslin, I'll let you take it away.
So this is another one of my favorite things, is to brag on my people. So Young Arts is one of the world's top competitions for young artists, and it's really the gateway to the Presidential Scholar in the Arts Award. This is a new record for us. So out of the 11,000 students that apply for this contest, well, let me get the numbers better. So 3 of the artists out of 22 visual artists from the world are from Lovejoy. 1 of the 12 of the design artists from around the world are from Lovejoy. There was no other school in the world that had 4 students selected with distinguished honors for this competition. Much less, there was definitely no other public school that had this many students selected. Most of the students that they got to share this honor with go to art magnet schools. And it's really important that I clarify. A lot of times people think that artists, visual artists, it's just this skill, it's this thing. Mr. Owens and I talked about this. It's not. There's so much hard work and care and effort and thought and intelligence and grit and backbone that goes into what they do every single day that nobody sees. All everybody sees is their beautiful work, and they go, wow, you're really good. And they go, yeah, because they don't know how to explain it. And really, this award is notice of that, because in order to be selected for this award, you not only have to be able to create the work, you have to be able to discuss the work. These artists were flown to Miami for a week-long intensive where they shared this week of learning with working artists, with professors, with fellow students, and they're interviewed as part of their process of getting towards the Presidential Scholarship in the Arts. And all of our students, it's incredible to see the impact that they have on the people around them because of their confidence, because of their maturity, because of the fact that they can handle a lot. Stress doesn't stress them out, or at least they don't show it that much. Maybe it stresses them out. I'm so incredibly proud of these students, and it's, to be honest, it's not because of the award. It's because they're this good whether they got an award or not. And it's because their peers celebrate them just like they would celebrate their peers. There's a community and a fellowship that they are a part of that is something that's incredibly beautiful, and it's unlike anything I've ever seen anywhere else. And so I would like to congratulate them, first of all, and then I would like them to come up and receive their certificate of award. So, first, we have Dana Colston. Thank you, ma'am. Oh, no, yeah. Oh, my. Next, we have Caroline Matthews. Thank you, ma'am. Next, we have Veronica Yee. Thank you, ma'am. And last, we have Lane Beller. Amanda Beller is receiving this award on her behalf. Thank you. Lane is in New York right now. She studies at New York, and she is wishing she could be here because it's 4 degrees there.
Amazing. Thank you. All right, item 7 tonight, public comments related to the January 21, 2025 agenda items.
Good evening, Board, President Owens. Happy Board Appreciation Month. We do have 2 public comments related to agenda items this evening. So I'll go ahead, if that's all right with you, President Owens, read the statement and then call our speakers up. Each individual will have 1 opportunity per meeting to share their comments with the Board of Trustees, not multiple opportunities per individual agenda items. If a speaker is not present when his or her name is called, the speaker forfeits the opportunity to speak at that meeting. All speakers will be limited to no more to less than 1 minute per speaker in order to maintain effective meeting management. The speakers will be recognized in the order in which each person signs up. If there are more than enough speakers in that time allotted for public comment, the amount of time per speaker may be reduced as determined appropriate by the board. If time does not allow for you to speak at the public comment, the Board of Trustees may allot additional time for public comment or defer specific agenda items for review at a subsequent meeting in an effort to allow more public comment, as determined necessary by the board. The public comment card will not be maintained from one meeting to the next and is only applicable to the meeting on which the date is submitted. If you have a specific concern related to an employee of the district or a specific student issue, you're encouraged to utilize the district's grievance procedures provided in board policies DGBA local, FNG local, and GF local. Each grievance procedure allows for an individual to redress grievances with the board. All relevant policies are available online on our website. Disruptive behavior will not be tolerated in the meeting, and if after the provision of a single warning, the disruptive behavior continues, that individual may be escorted out of the meeting by district officials. It is a criminal offense for a person with intent to prevent or disrupt a lawful meeting to substantially obstruct or interfere with the ordinary conduct of the meeting. The Board of Trustees appreciates your active participation in the school district. With that said, President Owens, we have our first one is Chris Derry. Sorry about that. And we'll have you state your name, address, and if you have students that attend the district.
Good evening. My name is Christopher Davey. I live at 95 States Lagos Trail, Lucas, Texas, 75098.
Thank you so much. I'll go ahead and start your time now.
Okay, I'm a little nervous, so apologize. I just want to let you know my child is in the district for the last, since she was in 3rd grade. She's in 7th grade now. Her name is Genevieve. And Genevieve has turned out to be a blossom child. She was a shy child when she came to Lovejoy a little bit, and she's blossomed into a wonderful, wonderful young lady because of your teaching faculty staff. She has opened up more because of her shyness when she was young, real little. She was extroverted, and then she became shy, and then she's now more. The orchestra program at Lovejoy is fantastic. I cannot tell you what the teachers are doing. Ashley Dickinson is doing a fantastic job with them. She plays her violin continuously. She wants to be a part of this district. She loves the district. She makes great grades. We moved from 33 Santa Rosa, which was 3 blocks away. We were told by the district that she would be grandfathered in until she graduated and we moved over 3 blocks. So the reason we are here is because we love this district. We stand behind the district, what Lever stand for, and our child is thriving. And I know that she would love to continue to be here. She really comes all the time and prays like crazy that she loves her district. Her friends are here, they're kind. The faculty is very kind. They're willing to go the extra mile for her. And that's what we ask for all our children, is for our children to thrive, to be better Americans, to their kinder, to their spirit, and to their society. And she does all of it. And you can't ask for better than that. And I just want to let you know, thank you for the opportunity for us to continue to go into Lovejoy. Please open your hearts to children like her and children, period, because the gentleman was right of this, just talking about, just for his kids were blossoming, but these kids in orchestra are blossoming, the kids in football, I'm sure, are blossoming. Everyone has the abilities that bring good spirits to this house. And you know what? When the kid goes to school and loves going to school, that's awesome to me. My child loves school. And I was not the kid that loved school, I'll admit it. And, I was the one who was the smart kid in class and said, I got my work done, I'm ready to go. she's like, let's continue to go, let's learn more, let's continue to read. When she gets home, she just wants to continue to learn, and she does a really great job, and we're very proud of her as a young lady, and she has turned out to be a great human being because of Lovejoy. So thank you very much for the opportunity. I really hope that we can open our hearts to continue to come here like we were promised, you know, grandfathered in when we said. We even got a letter from the district saying she was approved through all the way through 12th grade, so I would hopefully we could stand behind that. It'd be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments.
And our next speaker is Valerie Segura. If you could please state your name, address, and if your students attend the district. And this also regarding agenda item number 22.
My name is Valerie Segura, and I live at 1809 Country Brook Lane in Allen. My daughter goes to Puster Elementary.
Thank you. I'll start your time now.
I would like to say that my husband and I do not agree with the Lovejoy Scholar Program continuing for 2025-2026 here at Lovejoy ISD, or any year after that. I believe the Scholars Program discourages families from moving into the district. We took in more scholars this year versus last year. As of October 2024, we took in 269 scholars versus last academic year, we ended with 206. A lot of our elementary classrooms are now exceeding the state maximum on the teacher-to-student ratio of 22:1. Hart, first, second, third, and fourth grade classrooms have exceeded it, and Puster, kinder, third, and fourth classrooms that has as well. Larger classes leads to teachers being spread too thin, which leads to teacher burnout and students not having their individual educational needs met. My husband used to be a school marshal here at Lovejoy, and we saw what the old Lovejoy used to be. It was kids come first. So we worked very hard and made family changes to move into the district, only to find out that now classroom sizes are too big. We lost seasoned teachers to local ISDs, and we are admin heavy. Unfortunately, it seems Lovejoy is no longer putting district kids first. We need to live within our means as a district, even if that means administration reorganization, even if that means letting go of people to put our kids first again. We need to find another way.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
President Owens, that's all the comments for this evening regarding agenda items.
All right, next up tonight is our invocation. Mr. Bobo, would you mind leading us tonight?
Sure, let's bow our heads. Dear God, I am so grateful for these wonderful educators and students who are sharing their talents with us this evening. And we are just so grateful and so blessed to have them in our lives. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of these students and all of these educators. I'm grateful for this board, I'm grateful for this admin, grateful for the staff. Please be with us as we consider the agenda tonight and with those presenting so we can do our best that we can. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Bobo. All right, notification items, item 9A, B, and C are in your packet, and you've received those. Item 10 tonight is our consent agenda. If anyone would like anything pulled, please let us know now. Otherwise, we'd consider a motion to approve as presented.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved, Julie McLaughlin.
Second.
Second, Marvin Bobo. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Item 11 tonight is our celebration of learning. Dr. Lori Tinsley.
Thank you. Well, you're in for a real treat tonight. We have one of our fabulous teachers here from Willow Springs Middle School. I'm going to introduce Mrs. Emily Peabody. She is a 7th grade social studies teacher, and Emily's class is one that just draws you in. It's such an exciting time to be in there, and the kids are highly motivated and challenged and just the environment of the classroom is so kid-centered, and Emily just does an excellent job. So we got to see a lesson that she did. It was actually before the holidays, but we thought it was important enough to bring it forward to you. So I'm going to introduce Emily, and she's going to share with you about the Texas history lesson that she facilitated with her kiddos. And Miss Eldridge, I don't know if you want to add anything to this as well?
Yes, thank you so much. Miss Peabody is here with us tonight to celebrate the learning at Willow Springs in Texas history. She represents us very well in our whole social studies department. Her teaching partner is Mr. Paul Zapardo, and we are just so excited about all the awesome things happening in Willow Springs social studies. Dr. Tinsley is correct. When you step inside her classroom, you don't really want to leave. I didn't get the privilege to take Texas history as I grew up in Alabama, but I feel like I have after having gotten the opportunity to sit in their classrooms. It is so fun and engaging. They were looking for ways to get the kids excited about history. They have a lot of content to teach, and they found a way using artificial intelligence to get the kids excited, and I'm really excited for you to see it tonight. So, Miss Peabody.
Thank you for your kind words. I truly love what I do. In seventh grade, as Ms. Eldridge said, we have a whole lot that we teach in a very quick amount of time. And as an educator, we're always challenged with being relevant to students today and making our lessons engaging and exciting and allowing them a hands-on experience. And so we were teaching the Republic of Texas, when Texas is its own country, and their presidential elections of 1836. And so we decided to pre-teach this lesson using AI technology. We developed 3 different people who spoke to our students. The first was a Texas settler who was speaking of the issues that were facing the Republic of Texas in 1836. And then we ran 2 individuals who were actual presidents of the Republic of Texas, just at different times. We had Sam Houston and Mirabeau Lamar. And we let them, their policies are so polar opposite and different that we went ahead and let AI speak to them, and they gave their presidential speeches to the students while students were taking notes. This was an awesome opportunity to let our students kind of have an experience with an election process where they listened to campaign speeches, they took notes on all of the important issues that the settlers were facing. And then we ran a mock election where they voted on all of the different policies, and then we presented our results from our classes and as a total from all of our class periods so the kids could kind of see how their votes added up. Of course, everything was anonymous, so they had no idea who voted for what, which is the process. And then at the end, they rolled dice and they had to make campaign posters, which were extremely impressive. Our kids are so talented with technology these days. They made campaign posters that represented each of the candidates and put a sales pitch on their candidate. And then that wrapped up our pre-teach, and we went into the lesson. And the kids were actually able to see how everything really played out. Because, like I said, both of these gentlemen were both presidents of the Republic, and they did push forward with their policy, which was fun for the kids to get to see how things turned out. And at the end, of course, we allowed them to vote again to see if their votes changed, and that was exciting too. So I'm going to walk you through just a little bit of the lesson so you can see for yourself what it looked like. These were our AI candidates, so we used Canva AI technology, took a picture. We wrote the campaign speeches based on our curriculum, and we allowed them to actually speak to the students. So the students were sitting in the classroom, they were engaged, they were listening to what seemed like real people talking to them, as opposed to the traditional method of how you would teach this, where they would read the campaign speeches, take notes. This just made it way more engaging and really exciting for the students. They enjoyed it. They had a lot of laughs over the AI technology, and then all of them, of course, want to know, how did you make this? And those secrets stay with me on how we make individuals say what we want them to say. So anyway, so these were our three AI people. One was a Texas settler, like I said, Sam Houston and Mirabeau Lamar. I've pretty much explained this as to what the overall lesson was, but I think the engagement in the lesson and the retention of hearing it, seeing it, writing it, using the information in a project that they could proudly present and stand behind. I really feel like we had a lot of buy-in from our students, and we were relevant. And sometimes in history, you struggle to be relevant because students are thinking this is so far in the past, how does this pertain to my life today? And allowing them to participate in an election format, become invested. A lot of them realize that while they like one person more than the other, maybe they don't agree with all of their policy. It was just a very well-rounded activity, and I felt like using AI really engaged the students on a level that we don't normally see in the classroom. So here are a few pictures for you to see. This is what it looked like as they were sitting watching the candidates speak to them, taking notes on their computer. And I did include two, I mean, there were so many. It was so hard to choose. Their campaign posters that they put together. Many of them used Canva to create their campaign posters. Then, of course, they would stand up and present them. And then, of course, that's what our election results look like. I gave you one little snippet. We did break down each of the policies, and we took a look at as each class period how we voted. So it was fun. And then I think if you click on these, it'll give you just a 2-second snippet as to what it may or may not, but
See if I can get it to do it.
that's okay. If it doesn't, it's just a quick little showing you how they're
Can I get
talking to
out
the
of it?
students.
If I got out of it, you'd have to do it, okay.
While she's trying to pull that up, what was the AI, was it a LLM that, like, what were you, platform were you using?
I was using Canva, and it was their avatar. It's run through a different platform, but Canva hosts it, and you can create 1.5 of them for free, but we have our ways of creating more Canva accounts and allowing ourselves to create these AI characters. But you basically find a picture, and Mirabeau Lamar, his wasn't really cooperating, so I actually had to AI a picture of him. It's not a very good likeness to him, but the kids got the idea, so.
Money from flowing out of the Treasury. Through tariffs, financial savings, and a reduction of the military, we can lay the groundwork for prosperity for the Republic of Texas.
So it gives you an idea of what the kids were engaged in and how they were viewing this. It was fun, so.
I have a 7th grader that is enrolled in Texas history, and she was very opinionated and invested in this election. She was very enthralled with the process, and so I heard about it every morning before the bus. And so, Miss Eldridge, I have also taken Texas history this year.
That's wonderful.
Let me see if I can play this one.
That's
too.
the highest
Future of
compliment
Texas
we
as
can
a
get.
beacon of freedom and opportunity.
There you go, okay.
First and foremost, let us be clear.
So that's the highest compliment that as an educator we can get, is that our students are going home and actually talking to their families about the things they're learning. It means that there was some buy-in and some carryover much beyond the classroom. So thanks for letting us present. Just it's fun to get a little peep into what's going on in the classrooms.
Thank you,
Emily.
Mrs. Peabody.
Thank you.
Emily, real quick, I want to share a personal story. I had lunch with your son last week at the Student
Oh.
Connection Council, and he said, "Do you know my mom?" He was so proud. So
Aw,
that was sweet, too.
Thank you. That's
Yeah.
my youngest. So yes, he's quite the character, and I love him a lot.
He
So
was
thank
very,
you.
very proud. Wanted to make sure I knew who you were. I said, I got you. I know who she is.
Thank you.
Next up this evening is our Board Legislative Subcommittee update. Mr. Janes.
I think I'm going to have to request that we change the order of the agenda. I don't like having to follow the AI-generated classroom activities with a legislative update. I'll do my best. So the 89th legislative session has now officially begun, and we're going to have a whirlwind tour over the next, what is it, 140 days or so, some odd days, few months. And just a reminder, Texas is somewhat unique in that the legislature only meets every other year and for less than half of the year. So they try to accomplish a lot. In the last legislative session, almost 1,300 bills just related to education were filed. So we're now in the bill filing process. That's going to be ongoing. I think we learned this morning that February 2nd is when the governor is going to make his State of the State address, and at that time, he's able to articulate some emergency items that can take precedent in the process. That's where we anticipate things will start to heat up, and we'll be monitoring closely what comes out of the bill filing process and how those things affect education, public education in general, and specifically how it might impact us here in Lovejoy. So we'll be bringing additional updates as the session is ongoing. A couple of updates. Well, the next slide just shows again, we've adopted in previous meetings our priorities for anybody in the community that hasn't taken a look at those yet. They're also posted on the website. We've really tried to, again, make it something where you can find areas that have impacted you personally, tell your story. If you're talking to leaders down in Austin, tell them how public education has been impactful for your family and why we need additional support in these various areas. A new page that the staff has created puts a little bit more talking points around, kind of quantifies some of the impact in some of these areas. When you dig into these things, the things that's interesting to me, talking about a priority, basically this is aligned with every priority and goal within our district, from board to superintendent down to the campus plans, is talking about school safety. We know this is a priority for every school district in Texas, but as an example, our funding gap when it comes to safety and security is close to $800,000, or 90% of our safety and security budget is unfunded from the state. So we're having to close that gap, taking funding away from other areas of our M&O budget to fund safety and security. Things like this are obviously unsustainable. Go down the list with special education, GT programs, pre-K. The GT, we have a 96% gap of unfunded for what it costs us to put on these programs versus the funding we get from state and federal funding to fill that gap. So when we talk about the hard choices we've made over the last many years, we've unfortunately had to start making choices that affect student opportunities. We went years ago or recently to a 7-period day versus an 8-period day. That affects the number of elective opportunities that kids have in classrooms. Well, these are the reasons we're having to make these hard choices. So when you're having the conversations, we're trying to put together as much data as we can to give you real numbers and show you the impact of, without having additional funding, whether it's the basic allotment, just trying to make it whole, because we haven't had an increase in the last 6 years. Obviously, everybody knows what inflation has done over that period. So just to get back to even, we need additional dollars, but then there's also these additional mandates in other areas that are important that we need to be paying attention to. So lots of areas where you can have real conversations with the legislators as we're beginning the sessions. Let's move on, next page. We do anticipate that with the new representatives, there's a lot of new representatives down in Austin this year. There's a new speaker that was just recently elected. You can see the breakdown of how that vote went down. We linked to that here in the presentation. But it's in the last session, things like education savings accounts, also known as vouchers, were a hot topic. We think that will be again. I anticipate that'll probably be on the governor's list of emergency items that'll take priority. Property tax relief, childcare, lots of things that are going to be priority items. Teacher pay is obviously a high priority item to be considered as well. The new speaker is going to be in the process very soon of forming the various committees. We pay close attention, obviously, to the education committee, but there are other committees that are extremely, appropriations committee is going to be important. All various committees that we could be paying attention to that can impact our funding. So we'll provide updates as those committees are formed of the different people that we can be reaching out to and expressing how things are affecting us here. The state is in a position that comptroller just released what's called a biennial revenue estimate. It talks about the money that the state has to spend in the overall budget. We're in a unique situation. We've got a strong economy here in Texas. We've got, over the last several years, record surpluses, money that's already been earmarked for public education, but because of how things went down in the last session, that money wasn't allocated. So there is money to spend. It's just a matter of getting the leaders in Austin to come to the table and do what's right for public education. So anything the community can do to help us in that process will definitely be appreciated. The Senate Education Committee just released what they call their interim report. This was a 54-page document talking about, this is just related to education, public education, so you can read through that and see where they're placing their priorities. But it's interesting to see where the priorities are. Our representatives, again, are Senator Angela Paxton and Representative Candy Noble. The Legislative Subcommittee, we actually had the opportunity to visit with our Representative Candy Noble this morning, shared our priorities with her. She was very receptive. We look to have a strong relationship with both of our local representatives, and want to encourage the community to do so also, and try to find common ground and figure out where they can be advocates and help us here locally. Any questions?
Very detailed. Thank you, Mr. James. Board, any questions from any of you all? All right. Next up tonight is item 13, budget workshop number 2, Mr. Willman.
Okay, is that better? Okay. Good evening, Board of Trustees and Superintendent Cordell. So tonight, as part of budget workshop number 2, we have our demographer from School District Strategies, Mr. Brent Alexander, here to share his demographic study. This is the same presentation that was shared with the Bond Planning Committee during meeting number 2. And then once he concludes his presentation, he's happy to answer any questions that you may have. And then we'll lead into reviewing the initial revenue projections based off of his demographic study. And then from there, once we do that, you may recall that during the budget workshop number 1, we had discussed reviewing the budget priorities, and that during this meeting, we would have discussions around what we anticipate the budget, or what we would like to set as the budget priorities for the 25-26 school year. So at this time, I would like to go ahead and welcome Mr. Brent Alexander from School Districts Strategies.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. President Owens, Superintendent Cordell, board members, thank you for having me here tonight to present the Fall 2024 Demographics Update. Tonight, I'm going to speak to you about several demographic trends that are influencing Lovejoy ISD's enrollment. Many of these you can see listed here. They're related to population and household trends, while others are the result of the national economy or the local housing market. But together, they all have formed this nexus that are influencing, really they're shaping the district's future. So let's begin by looking at a trend that's happening across the state in many areas, aging in place. As you look back to the 2020 census, I've taken this area of southern Collin County, that you see on the map, and using the census block data from 2020, I've shaded in red areas where you see over 34% of the households are age 60 and older. So even as you look back to 4 years ago, we were already seeing this trend begin, where many of the households, across southern McKinney ISD, certainly in East Allen, over into Lovejoy, and as well as Plano ISD to the south. So as those areas have aged, we've seen the numbers that are coming in from our national data source presented here, continuing to show the age 65 and older population numbers growing. You can see in that bottom chart on the left
that just since 2020, the 65 and older numbers are up another 12%. But if you go back to 2010, those numbers are up 87%. So as people are staying in their homes and getting older and their kids are moving through, you'll see the impact that's having on many of the districts here in the Southern Collin County area. Now, as the area has continued to age, it's probably not a surprise that the local birth rate has been declining. You can see the blue line here on the chart. It represents the annual numbers from 2007 through 2021. We moved those 5 years forward and compare them to the district's kindergarten enrollment. You can see that the numbers have declined, including the 15-year low in the 2020 number. That's the number you see there in blue, at just above 1,000. Good news that in 2021, the numbers did come up a little bit, so we expect that that the numbers for kindergarten should be up a little bit over these next couple years. You know, as you can see in this chart, these lower numbers from fewer births in the area, they've influenced the elementary numbers. You can see that the district's K through 4 numbers peaked back in the 2018-19 school year, and they've gradually declined over these last few years. We'll come back to this in a minute when we look more closely at the enrollment projections, but you can see overall the general impact that aging in place has had on the numbers. Now, a big topic of interest right now is the mortgage interest rate, because it's influencing the housing market. We've seen as the rates have declined, as rates declined in 2020 and 2021, we actually saw more home sales, which you can see here on this next slide on the chart in red, that really allowed many people in the district to sell their homes, which influenced the amount of inventory in the district. So on the one hand, when rates dropped to 3% in 2021, we saw a lot of turnover of existing homes. But then when rates climbed to 7% over these last 18 months, we've seen it, well, let me back up. When the pace of new homes accelerated, we saw prices double. So then we saw the amount of inventory reduced in the district. So as rates have been high, the turnover of existing homes in the district has slowed down. The turnover of existing homes, it's been essential to replacing the younger families in the district. As in the past, many homes, as their students have graduated from Lovejoy High School, they have moved out of the district, and a new family has moved in. But here over these last few years, if you look at the price, the chart on for the median resale price, as inventory dropped and rates have climbed, we've seen a couple of things happen. We've seen that median existing home price climb towards $900,000. It's nearly doubled here over these last few years. So affordability has become an issue, and this is also contributing. The higher rates are contributing to people aging in place, as many people refinanced back in the 2021-22 timeframe. So they have a lower rate. So they're waiting for those rates to come down. As you look at the affordability on the new home side, it's also having an impact. Up until the build out of Brockdale Estates, there were many homes in the 500 to $1 million range, which is kind of that move up price range. It was so popular for the district, but here recently with the build out of that subdivision, the district's new home market has moved into that ultra luxury price range, where many of the new homes today are well over $2 million. Now, that has moved the amount of homes each year being built in the district downward. You can see back in 2017, or really pre-pandemic, the district was seeing anywhere from 70 to 100 new homes every 12 months, but that pace has slowed down to about 25 to 30 per year. So these newer homes they're more expensive, they're taking longer to build, and there's far fewer being built per year than what we've seen before. So many of the top subdivisions today in the district are producing only 6 homes for every 12 months. Now, looking at the influence that the interest rates and higher prices have had ties into the new home construction market shifting to the north and to the east. When you look at this heat map, you can see how many Collin County districts are on the top 15, 20 most productive areas in terms of new homes. You can see Prosper and Salina, Melissa, others in that upper 75 corridor where we're seeing tremendous amounts of new homes being built in that under $1 million or right at $1 million price range. This map here really tells the story of what's happened here in DFW over the last few years. Now, this is the most recent 3-year period that we have for all of the districts. There's about 100 districts that make up the DFW area. But you can see shaded in red, those are the districts that have seen enrollment growth. Note this is the net percentage growth over the last 3 years. Look at the growth numbers that you can see in Prosper, Salina, Melissa, and other districts in the Collin County area. So essentially what the new home builders have been able to do is buy rates down to draw people further to the north and to the east with incentives, and that has provided more competition to areas with newer subdivisions, with newer schools, and that's something that many of the districts that you see shaded in blue are dealing with. So a lot of that enrollment decline that we've seen, that began in Tarrant and Dallas County, and now it's moved up into Southeast Denton and Southwest Collin County. That is a result of the aging in place in many households that are moving or deciding to move further to the north. Now, with all that said, Lovejoy remains a destination district. Every year that we do our student yields, we continue to see that our overall sample of homes are holding at a yield above near 1.1, above 1. If you look there at the bullet point here on the slide, many of the districts in Texas here locally are seeing their yields go down as more homes age in place. I mean, for example, in Allen, 0.6, Salina's still at 0.6, Grapevine, Colleyville, and others are well below those numbers. Now, when the new homes are available here in the district, we're still seeing an average of 1.3 yields per house, which is nearly double what many of the neighboring districts are seeing. Even at the elementary level, we're seeing strong numbers, 0.45 typically a yield on each new home in the district, which is what many districts are seeing overall for K through 12. The challenge for Lovejoy is that the supply of new homes is continuing to decline. You can see here, I've mapped all of the subdivisions that we're tracking. The ones highlighted in yellow are currently active, but recall the slower pace as the homes have moved up in price into more of the ultra luxury custom homes. Today, there's just about 157 total lots that are in the pipeline. A few years ago, that was up over 300. So as you can see, the district's slowly moving towards build out. I've given you the breakdown of the housing inventory numbers. There's about 100 lots that are fully developed on the ground as of the end of September. And then as you move over to the chart on the right, you can see that the new lot development has actually slowed down substantially here these last few years. All right, so let's look at how these factors have influenced the enrollment numbers for the district. The chart that's shown here on this slide does include all enrolled students, including Lovejoy scholars. You can see that in 2019-20 school year, the district did see its enrollment peak at just under 4,400 total students. As of the fall 2024 snapshot date, enrollment was right at about 4,000 total students. So this represents about 3,500 that are true resident students living within the boundary. There's about 190 staff students, and then there are about 296 scholars that make up that 4,000 total student. Now, the pace of growth has averaged about 1.7% decline over since 2019. The rate has been a little bit faster the last 3 years, averaging 2.7%. The rate is even a little bit faster than that if you focus in on just the resident-only portion of the district. But I think this slide here really tells a story for what's happening in terms of enrollment. I've highlighted here in green the record class sizes, looking back 15 years for the district, and you can see the waves of growth that have come through the district. So the first one, many of those class sizes were at record levels 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago, and they've aged up through. Many of them grew in that 200 up to 260 to 300 plus students in their intermediate and middle school years, and by the time they have reached high school, we're seeing the record numbers this year in the district. Now compare that to what's come more recently. A second wave of growth was beginning pre-COVID. You can see that in the 2017, 2018 numbers, but after the pandemic, we have seen the numbers decline significantly, and that's really evident when you look at those kindergarten numbers, with the district seeing an all-time low last year of 159 kindergartners. Now, on a positive note, the kindergarten numbers did bounce back this year to 192, which is more in line with what they've historically been. But as you can see, the influence that the district has now with being with the higher proportion in the secondary versus the early elementary grades, now we're dealing with the largest gap between the senior class and kindergarten and first grade numbers. So just know that these influence enrollment as we move forward. When you roll everything forward for the district, you're looking at about 3,500 or just under that. So adding in, the district has typically seen about 100 newcomers over these last 3 years. So if you add on top of that, continuing at about 300 Lovejoy scholars, that's where we're looking at next year at this time being just under 3,900 total students. Now, projected out a few more years, this is where each scenario takes into account the low scenario there represented on the green line. That's if we see kindergarten drop into that 175 per year range, and we see the middle school numbers stay below 230 per class. But if they continue to grow like we've seen historically, we think that the blue line should be more representative of what to expect. I mean, it's still an annual average decline of 2.5 or nearly 2.5%. It does put the district on a path to be in that 3,500 to 3,600 total range within 5 years. If we see more home sales, yields remain strong, maybe interest rates come down towards 5%. You know, what we're hearing is that 5 to 5.5% is kind of that unlocking rate range that most of the realtors are saying people would actually consider moving if rates do return to that. If we see that, then maybe we see more homes turnover and more people have opportunity to move into the district. But even within all of these scenarios, and if kindergarten is able to grow back towards 200 a year, right now without replacing all those bigger numbers at the secondary level, the district's still on a path, a downward path in terms of total enrollment. All right, any questions on all of that?
So the 5-year enrollment projection slide, just to clarify, I think you said it, does that include the existing level of transfers or not?
Yes, it does. It's assuming that you all continue near 300 scholars.
board any other questions for the demographer?
It's a lot of information, but I think very helpful to understand more about how you evaluate the numbers that were being provided, that we use for budgeting, which is so important as we plan for the future. So thank you for the detailed explanation.
If there's no further questions, thank you, Mr. Alexander, for being here
Thank you very
tonight
much.
presenting. So, moving on, as part of the demographic study, we do ask Mr. Alexander to kind of provide us with a comparison of looking at our projected enrollment over the next 5-10 years compared to each one of our campuses' functional capacity. So you can see here when we look at what we're using here is his moderate scenario when comparing up against the functional capacity. You can see that we're ranging anywhere from 59% of utilization at our campuses to upwards of 80% at other campuses. So with that being said, we are very mindful of the need to kind of maximize our utilization on our campuses, and we examine kind of our current configuration, but then also looking at what does alternate configurations, what that would look like when comparing enrollment to the functional capacity. So here in our current configuration, you can see our primary schools, which serve kindergarten through 4th grade. You can see at both of our campuses, for the most part, our utilization is about 75% on average over the course of 5 years. And then when we look at our intermediate school and our middle school, under the current configuration, 5th and 6th at the intermediate and 7th and 8th at Willow Spring at the middle school, where our utilization is below 75%. But as we explore and think, looking at alternate configurations, you can see by pushing 5th grade down to the primary schools, it would force both our primary schools to be at utilization of over about 110%. So it would be over functional capacity in these scenarios. But then looking at pushing 8th or 6th grade to the middle school, early on we would be right at functional capacity or over, but it'd be in between 85 and 100% there. So we continue to evaluate and create scenarios as we navigate our district's budget challenges resulting from the stagnant state funding. But as you can see with these scenarios, that even if we looked at this as a budget lever, it would just create a whole different set of challenges as we look at kind of our functional capacity and our the space perspective at each one of these campuses. So we thought it was important to kind of show and look at that and know that as we're thinking about our budgets, we are looking at different scenarios and what that means for the district, and also what that means for our functional capacity, but then also on our budgets. So now moving on to our revenue projections. So in 2019, as we all know, the Texas legislature passed kind of sweeping school finance reform in House Bill 3. And you may recall that during Budget Workshop 1, we shared a graphic from the Dallas Morning News regarding the stagnant state funding and how it has not kept up with inflation. So you can see here the buying power of the basic allotment has decreased by $1,340 since 2020. And when we look at this chart that was provided by the Legislative Budget Board in North Texas, I think, is it North Texas? I can't remember the legislative group. We can see that from a constant dollar funding for public schools, it has decreased by $9.86 billion since the implementation of House Bill 3 in 2019-2020. So tonight, I also wanted to kind of revisit. We had shared this back in August, looking at our original adopted budget and comparing Lovejoy ISD's funding at the state and federal level compared to our expenditures, compared to the state average. So we wanted to revisit this based off of Budget Amendment 2 that we provided earlier in the consent agenda, and look and see how, with the updated revenue projections, Also including with the additional funding that we received from the Hold Harmless, what that looked like compared to the state average. Now, the state average still is based off of last fiscal year, because that's the most recent data that we have available. We don't have available the federal revenue on a per student basis, so this is only looking at, it's not really apples to apples, it's more because the funding gap is going to be much larger when we consider the federal revenue. But we can see here when looking at kind of Lovejoy and our overall funding, less recapture, we're looking at total revenues on a per student basis of roughly $9,464 compared to the state average of $9,776. Our current expenditures, we're expending roughly a little over $10,000 per student. So when we're looking at just the governmental funding, our total net is $612, or negative a deficit of $612 per student. So what that means is that we're just looking at just the funding gap of our total expenditures versus governmental funding. Locally, through our strategic plan, our 2030 strategic plan and our financial sustainability committee, we looked and pushed for being strategic around revenue generation. So locally, we're generating additional $452 per student to kind of offset that $612 deficit, and that's going to come from our facility rentals. It's going to be from being strategic with our investment income. It's going to be the continuation of the LCDC and the programs there and the revenue that that's generating. So we're offsetting about 74% of our deficit just through local revenue generation, leaving us with a deficit of $160 per student.
So just making sure I understand that, Thomas, to say it another way, we're spending about $10,000 per student. Through our local tax collection and state revenue, we're covering about 95% of that, but we're locally generating another 5% of our budget per student, offsetting it with our own creative revenue generating exercises.
Yes, sir, that's accurate.
Okay. So, these are beyond the money we're getting from any taxpayers or anything from the state. It's finding ways to cover the majority of that gap that's still there, but there's still a big gap.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that gap, Thomas, when we talk about compared to the state average, that federal revenue dollar for most other schools in our area are substantially more than $41. Is that correct?
That is correct. A lot of it is dependent upon low socioeconomic and special education population. So those are the main drivers of federal funding.
That number could be well into $100, not $41.
Absolutely. I would imagine a couple $100 easily.
Thank you.
Then, Thomas, with this amended budget, it includes our scholar population?
It does.
And all of the basic allotment that comes with those students?
That's correct, it does.
And that would be included in the total revenue line?
That's correct, yes.
And your other local revenue generation, this is like facility rentals? as an example,
Facility rentals, transportation, fees, investment income, yes.
Thank you.
Include foundation support?
That would include foundation support as well, yes, sir.
Tax collection, had we not had scholars in those seats, obviously that would have been recapture paid back to the state. Local collections that we weren't able to retain through our attendance. And our
Correct.
average daily attendance.
What you would see is probably the local revenue tax collection number would go up, state revenue would go down, and then we would see a higher recapture. That is correct. Okay. So just reviewing some of the revenue assumptions. So based off of, even though we looked at the moderate and kind of that capacity analysis, we continue to take the kind of the conservative approach when it comes to our budget. So we're leveraging Mr. Alexander's low enrollment numbers. So we're looking at the 3820 compared to our current 3935. So the difference between our current 3935 and then what Brent showed is, and you'll see it'll be a common theme through some of our presentations, that we provide him the data based off a snapshot date. Snapshot date is typically the last Monday in October, I believe, is it last Friday of October, I was close, and what the enrollment is for that particular day. So when we don't have the luxury of receiving funding and picking the one day where we had the highest enrollment and say fund us based off of that at our attendance rate. It's based off of the average for the year. So we're looking at the 3935, that is the enrollment average as of 1/16, 2025 compared to the 3820. We are looking at an attendance rate of, from a budget perspective, of 95.9. This is an increase from what we've seen and budgeted for in the past, which is roughly around 95.6. We're currently at 95.8. We continue to improve and focus on attendance, and we believe we can continue that trend going into next year and move that up to 95.9. We do have an estimated property value of, $4.2 billion, which is representing a 7.5% increase from last year. And then as part of kind of the revenue assumptions, as property values increase, we'll continue to see the M&O tax compression. So the local tax rate will go down with the increase in property values. And then we're also taking the approach of no additional state or federal funding. So as previously shared, we know that we have gone 5 years since the implementation of House Bill 3, and we are approaching this development of our budget for the 25-26 year as if the district will enter into year 6 with stagnant funding. So while we navigate through this uncertainty with funding challenges and the legislative session, we are mindful of our student experience and will continue to keep this at the forefront as we consider staffing and our operating expenses. So when we look at our initial M&O revenue estimates for the 25-26 year, so this is net of recapture, so this is what we are generating from our enrollment projections and our anticipated 95.9% attendance rate. So you'll see that we'll receive a drop of roughly $726,000. So what you see here is that as property values go up, local tax collection goes up. So the district will start burdening a majority of the cost. So that's why you see local tax collection goes up while state funding goes down. Because with that increased tax collection, the state will allocate more towards local dollars than providing state dollars. Also, when you're looking at kind of the $726 differential, and we're looking at kind of that previous slide where we looked at the per pupil funding, if you do the math on the 159 students decline and that math, it's not necessarily going to always add up perfectly, because within the state funding, there are fixed components in the revenue that regardless of enrollment is going to be the same dollar amount. So for instance, we get funded $15,000 per campus for safety and security. So that's a fixed number, is not driven by enrollment. And then there's some other fixed numbers that are in that calculation as well. So I'm going to stop there before we go on to the next topic. Any questions as it relates to the revenue projection? Okay, so moving on. So during the budget workshop 1, we had discussed having conversations about setting the board budget priorities for the 25-26 year. So during the 21-22 year, the board set these 4 priorities as we entered in the planning for the 22-23 budget development. And I think we can say with confidence over the past few years, I think we have accomplished the goals of these budget priorities. So when we think about the priority of restoring our fund balance, going from less than 80 days of fund balance to ending last year with over 175 days of fund balance. And then when we look at kind of employee compensation, every year, at least since I've been here, we have done an employee increase, and increase in compensation ranging from 1.5% to last year, really focusing on teacher pay and giving them a 4% increase. So as we're entering into the budget considerations for the 25-26 year, I would like for us to have a discussion around how our budget priorities may have shifted from these four going into the 25-26 year.
Thomas, real quick, if the Texas legislature works really well together and they all come up, they want to give public schools a lot more money, is there any way we can incorporate that into this budget, or would it be too late in the year to know?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yes, if the legislator comes up with different funding mechanisms, when would we be able to know when that happens?
If they come up with other funding mechanism?
Yeah,
If
if they
get
raise
more-
the basic allotment,
if they
when
r-
would that impact our budget cycle?
If they raise it during this session, it's probably not going to impact until the 25-26 budget cycle. It would not impact the current years.
Correct, but could we make the decision, if they increase the basic allotment, though, we would know in time unless they go to a special session?
Yeah, unless you go into the special session. I think it ends in May sometime, so we could potentially, if we have enough information, because we don't plan on presenting for board approval until the June board meeting, so that would give us a little bit of time to incorporate anything that is a result of the legislative session.
Well-
I'm so sorry. Mr. Willis, you raise a really good question. I think one thing that we always have to think about is staffing, and with the significant educator, specifically teacher shortage, that any decision or planning that would be related to staffing, the earlier we know, the better, and that's really important, because if we get too far into the spring, we get into the summer, although there may be, if there is funding available, and that is something you approve in terms of the budget, sometimes in planning for next school year, late in the spring and summer, is remarkably difficult to have the level of impact that we would want to have based on those decisions that you all make.
So I think for priorities, Thomas, to your point, the question of what those are, I certainly see, while we have, yes, been able to augment fund balance, we certainly are passing deficit budgets, which ultimately eat against that fund balance. And until we have different variables around state funding, the ifs and buts really don't mean a lot yet. We can plan on what we have today. Obviously, passing amendments to budgets and priorities can be done as we know more information about that, but ultimately, I think those four pillars that exist, I don't see how those don't stay. Even though we've done a good job, we've got to maintain that fund balance in order to cash flow this district. Employee compensation, attendance, and enrollment obviously being functions of our ability to capture and retain the funds that we receive through local tax collections and not send it back to the state and adequately fund our district. The new ones added class size, student educational experience, safety and security. I've not seen these as a lack of priority, certainly with the safety and security aspects. But I can share my comments that those four pillars that have been there, I think, need to remain for certain as some feedback. One speaking, giving input.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and obviously I would point out in terms of safety and security, it's our #1 board goal. So it's obviously a high priority, it's obviously a non-negotiable in a lot of ways, at least personally for me. You know, we need to see what comes out of Austin. I think security and safety will be a priority for the legislature, because right now they're making us fit 90 cents out of every dollar that we spend on safety and security, and I think there's statewide recognition that it needs to change. So I'm fine kind of having a rolling discussion as we go through the process about budget priorities. We have our board goals, we have our, our other priorities, and they all feed in and fit in somewhere into these concepts. So I'm fine with kind of just having a rolling discussion as we go through this process.
And I really don't have a problem as well with the 6. I just know that these 4 fundamentally have to exist under our current funding mechanism as a high priority, or, sustainability won't be at the top of the list. And so
Yeah, I think just to add maybe some of my recollection of Board Budget Workshop 1 was that, so you can see of the 4, 3 of them carry forward to the 6, so they're not going anywhere. And my recollection of the conversation around enrollment was that, not that it wasn't important, just that there may be less levers for us to pull on that, just given we've done such a thorough demographic update there. I think we have a clear picture. It was my recollection of that conversation, not that it wasn't important, which is why I think that one peeled away. People can correct me if I'm misremembering.
No, I would agree with that, Julie. That was kind of the conversation that we presented in the December Budget Workshop 1 as it relates to enrollment.
Yeah, the only lever we have is, outside of obviously organic growth within the district, is our scholars program. And I wouldn't want a lack of focus to exist around that, because that is a mechanism that drives substantial funding for our students, and it brings student opportunity to all of the kids, allows us to collect that full ADA, the same as a resident student would bring, for their attendance and participation in school. So long as that continues to stay, whether it's on there or not, I think we're still focused on the same things.
Would we be able to kind of lump that into kind of the overall student educational experience as a mechanism to continue that path towards student educational experience, and put that as like a bullet point under there?
Fine by me, as long as that's a part of the equation.
Yeah, I'm actually seeing that class size and student educational experience are somewhat the same thing. So in some grades, class size has maybe a bigger impact. I'm not the expert here, but I just, in all of our past discussions here, one of the things we always talk about is class size. And I don't know if I see a difference between student educational experience and class size, and the fact that the Scholar Program contributes to our overall cost, so that we have some scale, which reduces our per student cost overall. And maybe we can address student educational experience using those levers.
I'll just say thank you for capturing, our feedback from the first budget workshop. I don't know if 6 priorities is too many.
Right.
So we can certainly take feedback as we go forward.
But it sounds like, based off of this conversation, we can actually narrow it down to 4. If I recap what I thought I heard, is that we're still focused on the fund balance and kind of the annual budget net position and how that impacts fund balance, attendance and compensation. Well, actually, we're adding 5, sorry. So we can lump in a student educational experience with class size and enrollment, with also a focus on safety and security. So potentially just adding 1 more priority, going from 4 to 5.
I almost think you could remove the attendance aspect, because I don't know what else we can do other than driving to everybody's house and grabbing their kid and pulling them to school. But we're at 96% most of the time.
Yeah.
I think the awareness of having it out there as a benchmark is that piece. It certainly drives the importance to the community that, hey, look, we've got to keep it there, or all this is for, it doesn't translate.
Yeah, and do recognize that Lovejoy's attendance rate is higher than many, 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 many school districts in the area and across the state. So, keeping a focus on that in terms of metrics and measuring might be an easy way, or not easy way, might be a way to keep that as a priority without having to juggle too many priorities.
It'll be another one that we can monitor with the legislative session, because that's been a topic of focus about enrollment versus attendance funding for a while as well. So we'll see.
That help?
Yep. No, absolutely. It helps. Okay. Perfect. All right, so that pretty much kind of concludes, so just preliminary timeline. So we're aiming for the June 16th board meeting to bring forth a proposed budget for you to consider and act and adopt, and then also adopt a tax rate and compensation plan. And along the way from now until then, we'll continue to have budget workshops and provide you with updates on our now moving forward to our kind of our expense assumptions and how we're approaching the expense side. And then how we would like to kind of look at our expense and our revenue and kind of tie back in as we approach the development of our budget, some of those priorities that we just discussed here, and then kind of make some decisions based off of that.
Thank you very much, Thomas.
Thank you.
All right, item 14 tonight is our bond planning committee update on bond capacity. Mr. Percival and Mr. Willman. And probably Mr. Witt.
Good evening, Board. We would like to bring everybody kind of up to speed. We've had some time we've had some downtime, some time with family over the past couple months in between some of our meetings, and so we'd like to just do a brief recap. Back in December on the 17th, our bond planning committee worked through meeting number 4. During meeting number 4, we met over at Puster Elementary School. Over at Puster, prior to the meeting kicking off, we offered a mini tour of that campus. We had some feedback from meeting number 3 when we took facility tours that some of the committee members would like to see the other elementary school. So we made that available for those that were interested prior to the kickoff of meeting 4. During meeting 4, we went through potential projects that could potentially be included in a bond package. We went through each of those. At the conclusion of that meeting, each committee member was presented with a project priorities worksheet that they were asked to take home and complete over the break as a homework assignment. They brought that back for meeting number 5, which happened last Monday night on the 13th. During that meeting, we shared some additional information with the committee on project priorities. And then in table groups, they actually worked through and voted a second time on different priorities that would potentially be included in a potential bond package. And they also heard from the financial advisor, and so on bonding capacity. And so we're going to have Mr. Willman and Doug come up and go through that information. Planning number 6, bond planning number 6 will be next Tuesday. That will happen here at LCDC. And so we will have more information to share at the conclusion of that meeting. And here are just a couple photos from the meetings. This is meeting 5 over at Puster, and then meeting number 6 that took place again last Monday here at LCDC. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Willman.
Thank you, Mr. Percival. So as Mr. Percival mentioned, that during meeting 5 last Monday, we did provide an update to the bond planning committee on kind of the different scenarios that our financial advisor, Mr. Doug Witt, who's here tonight to kind of present those different scenarios. Our level of capacity, so that way the bond planning committee can start prioritizing their projects, knowing kind of what their budget would be for those projects. Before we kick-started off the meeting, Doug's presentation, we did want to share and address that we had quite a bit of questions coming from the committee as it related to our INS tax rate, and would this new bond election, would that result in an increase in the tax rate? There's been some idea that it could exceed the 0.5 per $100 value, but we just wanted to address and share with them that every scenario that Mr. Witt is presenting and that we presented, it's going to maintain at the 50-cent rate, and there's no intentions of us, putting together a bond package that would exceed the 50 cents. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Mr. Doug Witt from Samco Capital.
Okay, good evening. It's good to be back with you. I think 3 of our board members got the 30-minute version of this with the committee. They pulled me aside and they said if I give that same presentation for 30 minutes that they were going to be unhappy with me. So I'm going to give you all the very short version, but for those, if it triggers something that you would like to discuss in detail, we can set up a meeting with the administration and me via Zoom on an individual basis. So With that said, what I wanted the committee to know is that bond capacity is not a singular number. It's not just one number. People ask me all the time, Doug, what is our bond capacity? Well, it depends on a variety of factors, and they're on the screen. It could be, what are we financing? If we're financing equipment and technology, it's going to be a different bond capacity than if we're building brand-new buildings, okay? So length of amortization will tie into the useful life of the assets being financed. And again, you're going to have more bond capacity for, say, new construction than you are for renovation, than you are for capital items such as HVAC or roofs. Next thing is interest rate levels. You heard the demographer talk about mortgage rates. We have our own indice, which you'll see momentarily. Basically, you're going to see we're in an average market. We're not at record lows. We're not at record highs. We're at average rates. And average rates will determine another bond capacity based on that. If we shoot up in rates, our bond capacity will decline. If we drop in rates, our bond capacity will increase. The third bullet point there is the tax base level and the speed of tax base growth. I will show you some historical statistics. I think you as a board have seen them over time. Thomas just gave you one that showed 7.5% growth. Mine's going to be a little less than that in these scenarios. And then the fourth bullet point's real important. You will see that numerically, mathematically today. If you're talking about snapshot bond capacity, how many bonds can we issue today at the 50-cent limit, right, in one installment for immediate term projects? It's going to be different than if this is a multi-phase, multi-year implementation of a facility plan over several years. Obviously, if we're issuing bonds over several years, that will increase bond capacity as we go. State funding, state law, they can impact us as well. For example, in the last time when they increased the homestead exemption, at the 11th hour, they added in hold harmless for that increased homestead exemption for our voted bonds. Had it not been for that, there would have been a lot of bond models underperforming. Now our bond models are performing quite well. So with that, that's not a very good shot of the graph, but I can, it may be on y'all's screen better than it is on this one. But on the very far right of the graph, you'll see the number is 4.1%. The average running across the middle is at 4%, a little over 4%, 4.02. We're in an average interest rate market. Pandemic, massive government intervention in our financial markets, record lows. Back to the left, the peak up there was the financial crisis, the liquidity crisis, the housing crisis, the Wall Street meltdown, the Great Recession, whatever term you want to use. So average interest rate levels is where we're at today. So taxable value history is important. There's a lot of numbers on the screen. I'd like to take your eyes down column 2 to the bottom there, and you'll see that the number in red is at 3.9 billion. Now, 3.9 billion, looking at the 3.6 billion prior, that's a $300 million growth shown in column 3 in red at the bottom. So you grew 8.4% last year, or a gross number of 300 million. You'll see 200 million numbers from me, and here's why. If you work backwards in column 2 up the graph, 3.6, then the year before you were right at 3.6 as well. Now, most of that was $300 million of growth, but offset by the homestead exemption. So we have two sets of numbers here, one that show you what you would have grown, so we have an idea of how we're growing year in, year out on an apples-to-apples basis. But the column 2 takes into account the change in law for homestead exemption. So now I'm going to focus your eyes on column 3. You grew at 300 million this year, 300 million last year, 500 plus million the year before, 200 million the year before that. Then you have the outlier, 89 million, and then 3 years of 200 million in that 3 prior years. So we have to be careful of extrapolating growth numbers, because if you, for example, were building a bond model in 2020 and 2020-21 hit, and you were assuming we were going to continue for 200 million indefinitely, we would have had 1 year that we would have been off, okay? But again, if you have a multi-year, multi-phase, multi-installment process, then that 200 million picks back up, and then you blow it out of the water with 500 million, and not only are you back on track, you're ahead of schedule with any assumptions. So that's a look at your historical tax base growth. and
Can I
what
ask
we
a
have to
question
work
real
with.
quick?
Yes.
Do these numbers include like new construction?
They
or
do.
They do, so these include some of the projections that we were talking about earlier?
Yes, this includes revaluation of existing properties and new construction, and then in column 2 deducts the changing homestead exemption, and in column 3 it shows the growth year in, year out without the change in law. And that's both, that growth is revaluation and new construction, which is, you know, when I look at this, depending on how long our plan goes out, we need to be cautious to know that revaluation could be more temporary than new growth. And we're pretty much a landlocked district here, so we have limited spaces for which they can build, and we have very limited spaces for any commercial activity. Commercial activity comes with bigger values on the same plot of land, if you will. Okay? So, the short version here is we put together 2 scenarios to illustrate this. We can run an unlimited number of scenarios under various assumptions. What I did tell the committee is you're going to see 2 kind of bookend scenarios from me, but ultimately, whatever their priorities are and whatever your priorities are as a board, I want to custom build a plan of finance to match that facility plan. The numbers that you're looking at tonight and that they were looking at are my numbers. These are what happens if we assume this, what is the bond capacity on the other side of the bond model, the financial model, the mathematical model. So the first scenario was an assumption of a single installment. This is a one-and-done bond program. Not the typical that we've done in this district, not the typical for most districts in North Texas. Occasionally, we do have some districts says, we want to build this, and we're going to do it all at once. And so this is a $180 million single installment. The amortization length in this scenario is 20 years. That's consistent with 15-year capital, 20-plus year renovations, some smaller percentage amount of new construction. So 20 years is a very short-term Texas school bond when we're building new facilities. State law allows us to go up to 40 years. The majority of school districts are 30-year amortizations with a 10-year option to prepay on that. And this district has utilized those prepayment options for debt retirement over the time period that you've grown. So with that, the other assumptions here is to structure the debt service according to the value growth and assume 4.5% interest rate. That is higher than what we're selling these bonds at today by about 0.5%, rough number. And then the taxable value of growth is assumed to be $200 million for 2 years. You now see where I come up with the $200 million. It's much lower than that $500 million peak growth. It's a little bit more than the $90 million kind of low water mark, but it's pretty consistent with the $200 and $300 million levels that you've been growing. 2 years is a very short growth model for a Texas school district in North Texas. Most of our bond models are 3 to 5 years of illustrated assumed growth in the model. So again, baseline scenario with a single installment, do it all at once, short-term growth, small amount of growth, conservative interest rate, and at 50 cents, you have $180 million of bond capacity. This is what you might call the no-brainer bond capacity number, right? I mean, if the committee came up with $100 million worth of needs, which I'm certain they're going to come up with a bigger number than that, but if that's what they came up with, and you ask the question, can we afford it? The answer is absolutely yes, easily, with our assumptions in this model, okay? So that's illustrated graphically on the next page, and then to show the committee how the number changes depending on the other factors, the second scenario results in $267 million. So I didn't start with $267 million. I started with the assumptions, and that's what it produced, was $267.5 million of bond capacity. What were the assumptions that led to that result? 3 installments spread out 2 years apart. Is that realistic? I don't know, but it's an assumption, right, to illustrate this. So you would issue some bonds right after a May election, and then 2 years later, issue some additional bonds, and then 2 years after that, issue some additional bonds. We start with a 25-year amortization, then the next one's 23, and then the next one's 21. So again, if a facility plan has a pretty strong percentage of construction, whether it's at an existing facility and it's new construction at that facility, expansion of that facility, or whether it's a standalone building that's brand new, those go out 30 years. Major renovations, sometimes a major renovation will refurbish a building to a useful life of another 30 years. Sometimes a renovation is carpet, paint, some lighting fixtures. That's not 25 to 30-year type assets. So the other thing is the interest rate. We changed that. Now we use the word toggle. We toggled from 4.5 to 4.35. So this is not a conservative interest rate. It's a realistic picture of where we are in today's market. And then we extended that $200 million of growth for 4 years, because this is a multi-year, multi-phase project. And with that said, again, 50 cents. And again, I told the committee, there's no model you're going to see from me that will take you above 50 cents. We have to prove to the Attorney General's office when we issue and sell a bond that we have the wherewithal to pay for it within 50 cents. If we ever exceed 50 cents, it comes with ramifications for the next bond and the next sale. So under no circumstances will you see from me a model that says, well, maybe we will get to 52 cents or 53 cents. That's not going to happen. I told them that if you do research on Texas schools, you can find a handful, less than 2 handfuls, I believe, of districts that might be setting currently a tax rate above 50 cents. That's out of dire circumstances, not out of how it's supposed to work. It would be a district, for example, that sold bonds when the price of oil was X, and they had a tax base that was, say, $3 billion, and then that value decreased to $1.5 billion because the price underneath the ground changed, right? So they doubled their tax rate, going from, say, 30 cents to now 60 cents, and that's out of necessity and dire consequences, if you will, rather than planned process.
So to clarify that, just for myself and the public, the limit without dire circumstances is 50 cents. We wouldn't proactively, in any circumstance, plan a bond issue that required a service component of our tax rate to be above 50 cents.
Exactly.
We wouldn't, that's not lawful to do unless there's dire circumstances. So the
That's right.
limit on our tax rate for INS for the general public is 50 cents, which is what we currently have, our current rate, and what we're projecting any future issues to be serviced by that same rate without any increase to that number.
That's exactly what we're doing. All right, so with that, it's $267.5 million, again, issued with the last installment in August of 2029, so 4 years from now. The installments, I believe, are $100 million, $85 million, $80 million, or something like that. It's shown at the bottom of page 8, where the graph is. Down in the ledger, you can see some of those numbers. And again, it illustrates that 50 cents under this would be sufficient to pay for this. Now, what a taxpayer should know is that when you have one of these programs that's implemented over time, they should have comfort that we're not going to sell an installment of bonds unless we can demonstrate the ability to pay for it within 50 cents. If something happens and we need to slow the process down, we're going to slow it down to stay financially feasible and financially sound, okay? And if we get 500 million of growth in that value and you have the need to accelerate it, then we'll have the flexibility to accelerate it. But these types of plans, we can draw up any scenarios that you want, but we're going to evaluate them every quarter to make sure that we're on track for exactly what we need to do. And if we need to slow down, we will. If we need to accelerate, we will. But again, the number one priority here is that 50 cents, maintaining that. So, just,
And at some point, the defeasance measures we've taken over the years that I've been on the board have been on an annual basis. We've been able to accelerate our debt repayments and/or restructure our bonds with lower rates, saving the district money, substantial money, over and above what the original issues were put on the books at. That might be worth recapping at some point, so we
yes, I
have
think
that in
Thomas has,
perspective.
I think Thomas shared that chart with the committee, I believe.
Okay.
That illustrated that, yes, we paid down debt early, we refinanced at lower interest rates, and we did that because you had a long-term approach to your debt management. You maintained 50 cents. When that was more than sufficient to pay the existing bonds, you used the excess to pay those off early. Said another way, if we had not done that, then we would be sitting here today with much less bond capacity and probably a tax rate increase back up to the 50-cent level. So,
Well, as building aids, you have to maintain them, so at some point, it has to be, we have to have capacity to maintain these buildings.
exactly. Again, I'm trying to keep this presentation short, but I'm going to go to the last page, and the other thing the committee heard from me, the other thing the committee heard from me is that the way that we fund facilities in the state of Texas is through voted bonds. The way that we renovate facilities in Texas is through voted bonds. When you go to the budget you're talking about on the maintenance and operating side, you're sitting here on the front line scrubbing that budget to find money to balance that budget. Nowhere in there does it say that you can expand this facility or redo that facility. In many cases, you don't even have money to repair the HVAC system or to buy the new buses that are needed because the other ones are now at the end of their useful life. There is no money in there for these type of capital items and facility improvements. And I told them, if you don't believe me, just look at the statistics. In 2024, there were 160 school bond elections in the state of Texas for $20.7 billion of capital and facility improvements on the ballot. There are 1,000 school districts in the state of Texas. So 15% of them were having a bond election just in 2024. You go to 2023, there were 200 schools having bond elections, roughly 20%, for $43 billion of capital improvements and facility improvements. This is how the state wants us and funds us, is to present to voters major facility and capital improvement plans, so much so that we dedicate a singular tax rate solely to the repayment of voted bonds. So what you are doing tonight and what the committee's been doing is what your neighbors are doing day in and day out. In our last bond election, which was many, many years ago, the district took the same approach. It was a long-term approach. It was a multi-year, multi-phase approach. And those bonds were issued and implemented within the 50 cents that was promised over a period of time. It was accelerated and decelerated according to student counts, tax base, et cetera. And then when we got to the point where we know we have needs and we know we have future needs, but we're doing really well in our bond program and our bond model is outperforming any of the assumptions from 10 years ago, you purposefully and rightfully started paying down on bonds and refinancing those bonds and paying off the new bonds in a very short fashion, leaving you with what I hope is bond capacity to address the facility needs that have been on that list that you all will determine are your priorities. I will tell you that more often than not, I'm standing in this meeting and I'm giving these bond capacity numbers, and just for sake of argument tonight, say 250 million is what I'm talking about here. The district would need 400 million, and they look at me and say, we don't have enough bond capacity and bond money to address our facility needs. And so, because of your prior actions, I think we are very, very close to having the type of bond capacity that we need to address our capital and facility needs, whatever y'all determine are those priorities.
On the last page, Thomas, it has the $38 million is saved in interest through paying it off early and refinancing.
Yep, that's correct. I was just about to address that. For each bond planning committee meeting, we do provide a one-pager. So we shared that statistic in our, I think, Budget 1 meeting, where we went over the M&O and INS tax rate, and we shared it again in meeting number 5 on the amount of savings due to early repayment and refinancing.
That concludes my remarks. If there's any questions, please let me know. From here, where we go is whatever y'all determine is the amount in the projects. We will evaluate that. We'll evaluate the timing of that, and then we'll modify the model to more closely resemble what the game plan is going forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.
All right. Thomas, we're concluded in that section, correct?
That is correct, yes.
All right, item 15 is consider and possible action on calling a special meeting for a bond planning committee presentation. Mr. Percival?
I can take it from here if you, or unless you want to. Okay. So as we mentioned in the update, we will be having our final bond planning committee meeting next Tuesday on January 28th. So in order to give the bond planning committee an opportunity to present their recommendation, the administration is recommending action on calling a special meeting of the Board of Trustees on February 6th of 2025.
So February 6th is the proposed date by the administration. Board, how does that date settle with you all for a special meeting for the bond planning committee presentation? I would think evening, so that we can get maximum attendance for sure. You're what? Is there any chance you can attend remotely? Like Zoom? Any others unable to attend on the 6th? What date in the week is the 6th?
Thursday.
Are you in town on Friday? Well, we just have to have a quorum, certainly. Would be recorded. Are you okay if we do it on that date to stick with our timeline and it be recorded? To receive the presentation, we're receiving the presentation, so you wouldn't miss any opportunity to take action, but we're receiving the update. Everybody else okay with the 6th? Can we get a motion to approve the date of the 6th in a second? Seven PM, yeah. The 6th at 7 PM.
I move that we call a special meeting on the 6th at 7 PM.
Did we, and I apologize for stepping in, we may want to state that the open meeting will begin at 6 PM, giving you all the option to move into closed. I apologize, I should have made that more specific. Mr. Bobo?
Okay, so calling it at 6 on the 6th, in closed, and then open will be planned at 7 PM.
Thank you, Mr. Bobo. Is there a second? Second by Jeff Wood. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. And thank you for the flexibility, Mark. All right. Consider an act on calling a school trustee general election on May 3rd, 2025. Ms. Taylor.
Yes, good evening again, President Owens, Board of Trustees, and Superintendent Cordell. And also happy Board Appreciation Month again. This evening, we are seeking board approval to order a general/Lovejoy ISD trustee election to be held on May 3rd, 2025. We have 3 positions that will soon expire. They're 3-year term, places 1, 2, and 3. I don't think there's any other information. Unless you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
We continue to work through Collin County for administration of the election.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I heard the proposal. Do I hear a motion?
And the order is attached as well for your reference.
move that we follow the administration's recommendation to hold a May 3rd, 2025 school trustee general election according to the attached order.
So move, Jason James.
Second.
Second, Marvin Bobo. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. And it will require all of your signatures now that it has been approved, so I'll get that from you at the end of this meeting.
All right. At this time, I will open a public hearing regarding the Texas Academic Performance Report for 2023-2024. Ms. Taylor, do we have any specific public comments at this time?
No, sir.
Cabinet member, you may proceed with your presentation. Ms. Tinsley.
Thank you. So this is an annual public hearing that we have to share our annual Texas Academic Performance Report known as the TAPER Report. And within that report, you will find, you've seen some of this data already earlier in the year with our student performance data. It is over several years that you have here from 2021 all the way up through 24. It also includes the PEAMS Financial Standard Report, the accreditation status, which has not been granted in the past couple of years due to pending litigation, so we do not have the A through F rating. Also gives you information on some of the programming, special education. It also includes information about our staffing. So what you have here in your presentation, you have a copy of the district report, and every campus has a report. So it is posted on the district's website along with the campus reports, which we do that annually. That's a requirement that it is posted. We will be notifying parents that it's available as well too. We do keep paper copies here at the district level office and also on the campuses. And then if any information or questions, they may contact the campus principal or me regarding the district report. So any questions regarding the 23-24 TAPER report?
I believe there, do you have a question?
Make a comment, just to reiterate, so this data is data that we have already observed. It has already been part of our HB3 goal-setting process and our district and campus improvement plans. Is that
Correct.
Okay. It just doesn't come out in this summary format until later in the year?
Right. We
Okay.
usually receive it right near the end of the calendar year. And we also receive our federal report card as well too. So that's also posted on the district website.
So no specific action plans related today, they've already been
No.
incorporated and discussed previously?
Correct.
Other questions from the board? Ms. Taylor, did we receive any requests for public comments? All right, if there are no further questions, I'll close the public hearing. Item 20 tonight is a presentation progress update for the 2024-2025 district and campus improvement plan goals and performance objectives. Dr. Tinsley.
Okay, thank you. So you approved the district improvement plan back in October along with the campus improvement plans. And part of this process is that we do have formative reviews. So you're going to receive some updates tonight regarding our progress on our plans. And so just a reminder that the progress, I'm trying to see here where we're going. Okay, there I am, back a slide there. So it is a continuous improvement cycle that we begin with at the beginning of the year with a needs assessment. We identify the goals and the performance objectives, and then we put in strategies and then how we're going to measure our success. So I'm going to give you an update on the district It's not everything. I just lifted some up with the 5 goals that we have, and then you will hear from the principals regarding the progress that they're making on their campuses as well, too. So in the area of learning, we have been, and you've heard from me, that we're doing, providing quite a few opportunities for teacher feedback and celebrating the learning that's occurring, and you heard a little bit about that tonight with Mrs. Peabody's presentation. So we're getting into classrooms, conducting walkthroughs, classroom observations, learning walks, and then just our administrators and content coordinators are supporting teachers in the weekly planning sessions. The balanced assessment plan is living and doing a great job right now as far as the structure is providing our teachers timely data so that they can respond to student learning needs. We've had recently, before the winter break, we conducted as part of that balanced assessment plan some district benchmarks. And those were in the 4 core content areas, and I just wanted to lift up some celebrations we have in those areas. In the area of math, 2nd grade through Algebra 1, our special education students' scores were consistent with those of our general education students across most of the grade levels. Our grade level teacher scores are consistent, so you're seeing a lot of consistency from classroom to classroom. And then the work of professional learning communities is occurring in our teachers. What you're seeing with instruction is aligning to the planning process that is occurring. In reading language arts, English 1, subpopulations are on track with or higher than the overall student population. And remember, as far as the TAPER report, we are scored also on our student subgroups as far as their performance. Grades 3 through 6 increased in the area of meets for our special education population in comparison to fall 2023. Grades 3 through 6 increase of percentages of our students receiving a 2 on short constructive response questions. Did a good job with that. That was new as far as the testing criteria, and that's a big focus area we've had with our teachers as far as professional development and what we're doing in our classroom with kiddos. And then grade 5 overall results in ARLA, we're showing 87% of the students at the district benchmark were meeting standards on that fall benchmark. So a celebration there. In the area of science, biology results indicated students were performing well in most item question types and demonstrating growth in the meets and master scores. 8th grade assessment, 90% of our students scored at meets level, and 60% were at mastery. So this is a midpoint during the year of the performance of how our students are doing in the 8th grade assessment. We're seeing positive shifts with our instruction in K4, so keeping in mind that those were new science standards, so it was a big shift in the way that we're delivering instruction. And then our 5th grade science is assessed based on the K4 science standards. So we do feel like that's something we wanted to lift up as a celebration. And then all of our teachers are doing a great job as unpacking those new science standards and aligning instruction to teach the new standards at the level and the rigor that they should be taught. Just on the area, our second goal was innovation, and in the area we did some training back before school started or during professional development on what we call ADI lessons, and those are problem-based lessons that require students to investigate and design and come up with solutions. So more rigorous instruction you're seeing in those, so we're seeing evidence of that going on in our classrooms. And then we also did some training with our social studies and ARLA teachers, 7 through 12, on some strategies called S3 strategies. And that, again, is integrating reading and critical thinking into social studies and our language arts classroom. So we're seeing evidence of that. You're seeing students apply critical thinking, problem solving, communication skills. We have a K-12 digital citizen curriculum that we've made available to our staff that they're using with their students. We have a new K-12 STEM program guide and a STEM council in place. And then we've launched the senior portfolio that was formerly the senior project and implemented a new platform for students to house that information that we've recently done training on. So you're going to start seeing evidence of that with our students at the high school level. The third goal was about people, and in early October, the district trained 30 new teachers with their mentors on classroom management, engagement, and in the mentor-mentee program. We conducted an anonymous district survey in November. We've had opportunities for dialogue with our teachers to provide feedback through Superintendent's Teacher Council, the District Improvement Team, our district advisory boards, and grade level and department meetings with district leadership. We currently have 7 teacher residents, and we'll have conducted interviews for December graduates, and then we are going to be scheduling interviews with these teacher residents, so hopefully that we can secure them and keep them on board as they graduate. And then we have our teacher vertical teams in place for our 4 core content areas, and they are providing feedback for us on our new unit planning guides. Safety, we've implemented anti-bullying. We did some videos on Your Words Matter for some of our campuses. We've had suicide prevention lessons in place, and our campuses have done a great job, as well as the district level, of strengthening partnerships with local law enforcement and first responders. The CRAZE training has been provided for all campuses, and then we recently offered that for community members on January the 15th. Training regarding anonymous reporting is available, and we use that through, we have some monitoring tools in place, the Go Guardian, Beacon, and Vector alerts that are regularly utilized by staff, community members, and students. So that's an anonymous reporting that we do monitor, and it ties to safety. And then just an update on the Goal 5, Parents and Community. We've had a lot of success with the partnership with our PTO Council on offering parent ed sessions throughout the school year. We've had 3 parent cybersecurity trainings that have been offered. We will continue to explore partnerships with local businesses and organizations. Some examples are MCCU. We're engaging in some work with the Raptor Center here, and then also health science. And then, of course, we use multiple platforms for district and communication through our website, Connect with Katie, and any social media platforms. So at the district level, that is kind of an update and a quick nutshell of the progress that we're making, and it ties back to the performance objectives. So before we go with our campuses, any questions about formative evaluation on the district plan? Okay, I'm going to let Hart share theirs. Mrs. Acosta.
Good evening again. We're going to highlight some of the work we did in the learning area with our prioritizing the collaborative planning. I'm really proud of the work our staff and our students have done this first semester. We've really leveraged this time. It's dedicated bi-weekly for our teachers to meet with us and the leadership team twice a month. We've leveraged this to analyze data, focus on small group instruction, refine our instructional practices. We were really intentional this first semester, which you'll also see on the next slide, to do job-embedded professional learning for our teachers to build their capacities, especially in the areas of our K through 3 and shared reading, structured literacy, and just small group effective instruction. Through that, we've been able to model and coach, and as a leadership team, we've made it a priority to walk through during learning walks, be reflective, debrief with the teams, and that has leveraged our MTSS lead to create a menu that she has open weekly for teachers to sign up, whether they need modeling, they want some more coaching, they want to build their capacity in different areas. She is booked all the time that I have to make an appointment with her as well, but the feedback has been really positive. We have seen a tremendous growth and response with our students through structured literacy and the small group instruction, and especially the shared reading. Our teachers have built their capacity to be able to pick up any type of shared reading book and really use our priority standards to drive that instruction to deepen student understanding. We also are excited that next week we will be providing job-embedded training for our 3rd and 4th grade teachers. Our ARLA teachers will actually be diving into the extended constructive responses from the data we had last year and look for our strengths and identify trends and how we can refine those practices to build the capacity for our students this year. And then in the afternoon, our math science teachers will have the opportunity to dive into some science data, engage in building in those critical thinking skills that we know they need as they go to 5th grade at Sloan. And so they're really looking forward to that work. We invested a lot of time the first semester with our K-1-2 teachers, and so 3-4 are excited to dabble in the work. And we're just continuing our priorities as a leadership team to be accessible to them, provide that feedback, celebrate with the students, and just be in the classroom. So we're really proud of the work we've done. Any questions?
I know your third grade spelling kids are amazing. They made it 18 rounds. I was impressed.
We really appreciate you judging that competition. I was a little intimidated by the spelling bee as well. He did a great job, y'all.
Okay, for Puster, so Mrs. Haynes was not able to be with us tonight, so I'm just going to lift out. It's very similar celebrations as what Shannon shared that's happening at Hart, but again, you'll see evidence of the collaborative planning practices that are aligned, and teachers are using those 4 critical questions of a PLC, small group planning, common formative assessments are being administered and utilized to monitor student progress. And then again, small group instruction with the workshop model. They are at Puster, they are also doing a really nice job of getting into classrooms, the ILT, which is the principal, the assistant principal, and the MTSS lead, to help support teachers and provide feedback and dialogue about what's going well and to provide that support. The MTSS lead is also being utilized to model lessons and offer some co-teach opportunities with teachers, and just looking also at some of those constructive response that we talked about that you're seeing across the board. So, okay. Ms. Puckett's going to talk about Sloan Creek.
Okay, I'm happy to talk about Sloan Creek. One thing that's unique about Sloan Creek is being the 5th and 6th grade campus, you'll see that we are vertically aligned a lot with elementary, and then you'll start even seeing some trends that we're vertically aligned with middle school as well. So you'll hear some repeated wonderful things that are going on, but I just wanted to highlight some things that are happening at Sloan Creek that we are doing. We're doing the weekly walkthroughs, the weekly planning meetings. We're offering a lot of teacher feedback. Once we go through and we complete our walkthroughs with our teachers or our learning walks, we're giving that feedback, that quick feedback of the wonderful things that they're doing, and then some things in some areas where we want to see some improvement. So we're excited about that. All of our teachers got an extended planning day where they got to have some quality time with their team, instructional coach, an administrator, that we got to take that extra time and planning and really kind of look at things like longer than just, several weeks at a time. So that was great. All of our teachers at Sloan Creek had the opportunity to go to the Lead Forward professional development training in November, so that all of our teachers are hearing the same wonderful activities and lessons that they can incorporate in their lessons to increase student engagement, modeled lessons, co-teach opportunities, our instructional coach modeling different lessons and opportunities for our teachers. Really diving into that data. We did some map data training with our teachers. We've looked at our benchmarks. We've developed a progress monitoring tool to be able to fine-tune the needs of our students and how we can adjust. Then we have those planning meetings to review, calibrate, and look at how we are calibrating our extended constructed responses, extended DRA training, and then how we will adjust our teaching to improve student learning. And then one thing that we've really placed a high priority on is our positive behavior interventions this year at Sloan Creek. We've increased all of our staff monitoring, our visibility as administrators for our parents, for our staff, for our students. We aligned our behavior expectations with middle school, so we adopted the ROAR because we feel like some of our students, as they're getting older, that aligning that middle school behavior with Willow and what their expectations are, we're setting them up for success when they go to 7th grade. And then classroom management through supporting modeling and training. We've implemented a Celebrate Sloan to celebrate all of the wonderful things our students are doing. And we do that every 9 weeks. And then we're in our ILT meetings with our other administrators, our safety and security, really adjusting and seeing where we can improve in always safety and security and behavior with our students. So, any questions?
Okay, Willow Springs, Ms. Eldridge.
Good evening. So Willow Springs is making steady progress on our goals. Instructionally, a highlight of some of our progress includes student goal setting. This semester, we work with our teachers and our students. We took those beginning of the year map results, sat down with our students during instruction, had the students reflect on their progress and make some specific goals and some strategies that they're going to work on, taking those results and making them meaningful, not just to the teachers, but also to the students, and getting them more excited about their middle of the year map assessments so that they're going into it knowing what our goal is for them, that we want to see a year or more academic growth from every student in the building, and asking them, do you as a student understand what that means and what we're looking for? So we're excited about seeing those middle of the year assessment results, and we are looking forward to a really positive result and celebrating those individual wins with students and reminding them your progress is your individual progress. So we're really looking forward to that, and we'll have those results towards mid-February. Our campus is also working in professional learning communities to provide some job-embedded professional development. What that looks like at Willow Springs is opportunities. We are making time and space for teachers to observe one another. For example, that great lesson you saw from Ms. Peabody today, there are teachers with experience and maybe with less experience in our building who haven't had the opportunity to watch her give a lesson like that, and to see another teacher in the building take an instructional risk and see if that strategy works and actually see and hear her do it. So we have been working in our building to give those opportunities, whether that's during a conference period, if that's during leopard time, or if we as administrators can cover a class for them, as we are certified teachers, and students have been loving that. Some a little more than others. When they see me coming, I do have to explain, I'm here to teach you today so that your teacher can learn as well. And our teachers have loved that. And what we are focusing on during that job-embedded PD has been collaborative and cooperative structures between students, increasing the level of student discourse that we're seeing using those lead-forward strategies similar to Sloan Creek. Also looking for higher levels of student engagement, much like you saw with the lesson that you saw today. What can we do that is less traditional lecture style note-taking that's going to also deliver the same result, giving the students access to the content, but making it more engaging for them. Also, we are partnering with Sloan Creek. I know you've heard that a lot, but it's been an awesome partnership that we have. We are also working with them on our attendance goal. We're looking to raise our daily attendance rate to get that percentage up higher for the spring. We're working together to both educate the students and incentivize them to maintain strong attendance as we move into the spring. As we move to Goal 4, our staff is engaging in grade level meetings, also known as teaming meetings, to ensure that we have a shared knowledge, understanding, and ownership of our student support services in regards to student behavior. Our school marshal continues to be an integral part and a member of our administrative team. Mr. Anderton is already involved in our weekly administrative team meetings so that we also have a shared understanding of any point of concern within our building. And we also wanted to take this time to say thank you to our entire district leadership and also to our school marshal team to help us during this interim time during his training and as we search for a school marshal. It just speaks to the leadership of our district and that cohesion between teams as we were able to continue those weekly meetings with a school marshal from the team who knows our students, who knows our building, and worked so well with us throughout that process. So thank you. Any questions?
Okay, Lovejoy High School, Mr. Wheeler.
Hi, good evening, members of the board, cabinet, and the community members that have made it this late. So I'm going to update everyone on the goals that I presented on last time that I presented our campus improvement plan and just the highlights from some of the things we're doing at the high school. A couple things that we're doing. We have a focus, a lot like you heard from the other amazing principals that presented before me. We have a focus on growth on campus. Our achievement scores in STAR have been great. They're always at the top. Our focus this year is on that individual growth of every student and making sure every student achieves at the level that they are capable of. Something that we've done, we've broken down data. Our teachers in STAR tested subjects have a tracking sheet that shows the individual goal of the individual progress of the student, including the projected STAR score based on their MAP scores, so they can see the growth over time and where that student should be. Our students have also set individual goals for their middle of the year MAP tests and created plans to meet that goal. In regards to college, career, and military readiness, we've collected data and we're tracking our students in that area. We've tracked AP scores, dual enrollment. There are many different avenues that students can meet that standard. So we're compiling a spreadsheet, creating a database of sorts that we can easily go through our seniors and juniors and track where their progress is. We have a committee that meets bi-weekly to review that data and update it. Our counselors are beginning to meet with our seniors that have not yet met any of those criteria. We have a group of 4 students that are in a college readiness math class that recently passed the TSI test, which will allow them to be eligible or meet that CCMR criteria. So we have a lot of work that's been done in that area. Another goal of ours was our average daily attendance. Currently, it's at 96.42. And that's as of December 17th. So our goal is 96%, so we're meeting that goal. Our administrative team, when I say that they're working tirelessly to address our students' attendance concerns, I mean that, and they're working to get to the core of what the problem is. We have our name and need meetings that we do bi-weekly with our counselors, school marshals, our nurse present, and the administration team, and we bring that attendance data to the meetings and we talk through what's going on, and we really create that collaborative environment to get to the root of some of our attendance concerns. Continued, another one of our goals was some of our AP classes, when we reviewed data, we're achieving lower than the state average. So our goal was to focus in that area and bring some of those scores up. A lot of times the classes that get our attention are our STAR tested subjects, and we do a lot of great things as far as data analysis and creating student tracking sheets. So we're taking that same approach with our AP classes. So we have teacher planning days scheduled with those teams. We have, I think HGAP is our next one. So a lot of good work from our teams there. Our teachers are utilizing SAT resources that are aligned with the curriculum, and that's specifically in geometry and English classrooms, and that ties back to our CCMR goals as well. And finally, under goal 2 of innovation, one of the goals that we talked about was in the counseling area and some of the improvement that needs to happen with our communication regarding class rank, GPA, and some of the different policies and practices that we have. So we're working on surveying parents and students. We've completed some of it, and some of you have seen. We've sent a survey to parents. So we're looking at the best way to set goals for our counseling team moving forward.
How has the participation been on that survey?
That's something that we've had a conversation about recently. Student participation was good because we gave it to them during class time. Our parent participation, we'd like to be higher, so we have some thoughts on how we can do that. And we're hesitant to analyze some of that data if we don't have a ton of responses. So we're kind of back to the drawing board on collecting some more information so we can set adequate goals. All right, thank you all.
So I think you can see these plans are living documents, and the progress that we're making, we're very proud of, and it's due to the leadership that's happening on these campuses too. So thank you.
Board, do you have any questions before we move on? Appreciate the comprehensive updates and all the details. All right, item 21 is instructional materials selection and approval process.
Okay, so House Bill, I just want to go over, we are going to, we're talking about instructional materials and selection approval process for this spring, and I wanted to give you some background on why you're hearing from us at this time of the year. You normally would hear from us in August or September when we're looking at instructional materials, but there are some changes or some things that happen at the state level that have kind of pushed this back. So as part of House Bill 1605, it created a new criteria for the instructional materials review. It used to be considered adoption process. Now it's called the Instructional Materials Review and Approval, or the IMRA process. It has given local school districts an opportunity to establish the process or use the process that they were using in the past. It's also created some flexibility in the text review and the revision schedule. So in the past, you would have we had a calendar of when a new adoption would be coming forward. So last year, the last time we did that was the science adoption that occurred last year. Those adoption cycles have gone away. So districts are not charged to follow any type of calendar. It's kind of based on need. Many times when the texts are revised, that's going to determine the need for that. And so it's kind of changed the way that districts are taking an approach with this. Districts have local discretion when selecting instructional materials. They always have to some extent, but if you were going to adopt off the adoption cycle, you had the state put out these materials for you. It also tasked TEA to develop state-owned textbooks that are subject to approval by the State Board of Education. And in just a minute, I'm going to tell you why we're kind of delayed. That's basically known as the Blue Bonnet that came out before the first of the year. It prohibited the use of the 3 cueing in the new phonics instructional materials. So you could not have that 3 cueing embedded in those instructional materials for phonics instruction K-3. And then it mandated that publishers make the textbooks or materials that were approved by the State Board of Education or the IMRA approved textbooks accessible online to parents. So you've heard about the parent portal. So publishers are now charged, if they make that approval list from the State Board of Education, they're to have it available online for parents. So the State Board of Education met November 18th through 22nd, and they approved at that time a list of K-12 instructional materials as part of that inaugural IMRA process. So we received the newly approved list of high-quality instructional materials for K-5 English and Spanish language arts in reading, K-3 English and Spanish phonics, and K-12 mathematics. So as directed by House Bill 1605, the materials were created for statewide use. So you've heard some discussion about if you adopt any or you select any of these materials, there is some additional funding that comes with that as well, too. So, what we're going to do this spring is that we're going to initiate the instructional materials and resources local selection approval process for K-5 language arts and reading, K-3 phonics, K-5 mathematics, and then our world languages, French and Spanish. And we'll have instructional materials selection and approval committee, which we've always had here in Lovejoy in the past. The committee is going to be responsible for reviewing and evaluating our current resources in those areas, as well as any relevant new resources. So in the past, you did not always go through and the committee didn't always evaluate the current resources. So, and following that, they will be making recommendations that will be coming to you for approval on the ones that they are recommending for those subject areas that I mentioned. So how will they review the materials? There's going to be a very specific criteria. The first part, probably the first 6 bullets here, is what the State Board of Education did utilize to evaluate the materials that publishers put forward for those 3 areas that I spoke about, with the reading, the phonics, and the mathematics. We added some criteria that we also have used here in Lovejoy in the past. One of those is that instructional frameworks. As you know, we've developed mathematics instructional frameworks, which is, and then reading language arts instructional frameworks, which is really our philosophical approach to instruction in those areas. Teachers were a part of those, that process in developing those, and those are fluid documents, so we're constantly reviewing and making sure that those are current. And then we added the 6 or 7 additional bullets there. So what this will be, it will be a comprehensive rubric that the committee will use to review the current resources, instructional resources that we have for those content areas, and more than likely some new ones that they'll be looking at as well. So the process we're going to go through is that right now we are forming the IMRA committees. And that will be made up of teachers that for each of the grade levels, so it'll involve teachers from K-5 for reading language arts, K-3 for phonics, and then also for mathematics K-5. And then world languages will also have a separate committee. That's not quite as large as the K-5 committee. There will also be on the committee there, it's predominantly teachers, because they are the ones who are going to have the greatest knowledge of the text in those grade levels. They've used the current resources. They see maybe possibly strengths and gaps that we may have. And so you'll see 80 to 85% of that committee will be made up of teachers. We will also have some content specialists on there. We'll have dyslexia teacher representative, of course, on the reading language arts, special education, gifted and talented, and then some district level staff as well. So the committee will complete that rubric, that comprehensive rubric. Prior to that, and this is new that we are adding this year, we are going to do a survey and a needs assessment for all teachers in K-5 that are responsible for teaching these subjects, the areas that I've spoken about, just so that we can get another level of data for the committee to garner feedback from all teachers who are responsible there, because not everyone will be serving on the committee. So that is going to be going out later this week. Then the committee will convene, we'll review the survey and the needs assessment, we'll complete the rubric. The committee will then recommend for each of those areas that I listed the materials, instructional materials, whether it's maintaining current materials or possibly new ones. We're going to offer an opportunity where they'll go back to the campuses where teachers can look at those materials again, try them out. Then we're also going to offer, of course, what we always do, a community time frame or a window for the community to review the materials as well. We are going to add an information meeting prior to that window opening for community, because they're not always a part of, quite as involved as the committee is, so that's new that we've added as well. Once those 2 events are held and the community and teachers can provide comments, committee will reconvene, review the comments, and then come forward with the final recommendation to the Board of Trustees for approval. So that's kind of the window. It's going to happen pretty quickly, because normally, again, we would do this over a full year. We hope to get a recommendation to you this spring. And for ordering purposes, we need to get a recommendation to you, because when we have to go out and place this order for our materials to get them in time for the start of the school year, we'll need to have that. So not a whole lot of changes in the process. We just added some additional more where we could have a little bit more depth and more input.
How many teachers do you anticipate being on each of these committees?
It's a committee of close to about 30 total. So from each of the grade levels we have, we're We're going to combine the math and the reading together because they're elementary. Some of those teachers teach multiple subjects, as you know. So we'll have 2 teachers at each grade level for ARLA and 2 for math from each grade level. So 4 per grade level will be there.
I appreciate how thorough and transparent this process is. I think it gives a lot of opportunity for the teachers and the parents to all see the process. Is this primarily your core resource for each level? Because I know
Yes.
sometimes you may use a collection of resources.
It would be our core materials.
Remind me again, when you select a core resource, how much of those TEKs have to be covered for that?
Well,
Or do you not use that?
Well, we would want that based on the rubric. We would want a pretty high percentage. Now, with the State Board of Education requires 100%. Correct.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
All right, item 22 is consider and take possible action regarding continuation of the out-of-district transfer program for Lovejoy Scholars, known as Lovejoy Scholars.
Good evening. As you are quite well aware, our Lovejoy Scholars program is an application-based interdistrict transfer program. It allows students from outside the district or outside our school district boundaries to attend. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of information and update you as we talk about the continuation possibly of the program. The program serves kindergarten through 12th grade students. We currently have 268 students in the program for this school year, 24-25 school year. As you did put limits on it in the past of 300 students per year. We're very careful we didn't get to the 300 because we didn't have openings at specific grade levels. So we had wait lists on some grade levels, or we might have had openings in grade levels where we didn't have students that applied to attend, okay? I'm going to talk a little bit more about the seniors and kindergarten students. Kind of goes back to what Mr. Alexander said. There are 29 seniors and 19 kindergartners currently in the program. One thing that the program does tell us is we are definitely a destination district. As I get into these numbers, you're going to see some of that happening. Also, students, they come from all over the North Texas area. As you can see, looking at this table, 31% of our kids come from Allen, and we believe that's just because it's a one high school town and it gives them more opportunities there. 15% from McKinney, Parker, Lucas, Fairview. In that other category, that's a Wiley. We have someone that drives from Sherman, Murphy areas, Plano, St. Paul, Frisco. Those areas are in that 20%. Also, I do want to talk about that it contributes approximately $1.7 million to our annual budget there, which is that per pupil, that 268 times that 6,160 there. This is just kind of a historical enrollment of the numbers. Back in December 2021, that's when it was more of an open program where it was free to all. There were 348 students. By the end of the year, it was 276. We contributed to some of that is because we had about 20% of our kids moving into the district. So it was really an early onboarding of getting kids into Lovejoy ISD and moving into the district. That fall, we went down a little bit to 31, and that's when we were charging the fee. And then you can see from there, we started the year with around 270, and as of December 18th, we had 268 students in the program. So an average of about 265 students in the program over the past 3-4 years there. We also, if you look at just kind of by the numbers, kindergarten students, 19 is students, is definitely, a classroom. You can see the numbers are higher at the secondary. If I went back and looked at averages, we average a little bit over 100, 105 at the secondary. I think that's 114 there at the high school level. 45 at 7th and 8th grade. I think 34 at 3rd and 4th grade, and 75 at those elementary grades there. It is easier to absorb students at the secondary level because we offer so many activities, so many extracurricular classes. The opportunities are greater, and so it's easier to absorb more students at those levels, and I think that's one reason why those numbers are also higher there. Our program currently, the applications are submitted online. We do look at those applications carefully. They have to have a notary signed about discipline is something that is very important to us, and of course attendance, which we've all talked about that tonight. We do ask for 95% attendance, and for the past 2 years, and we also, of course, ask for the discipline form that administrator would fill out from a previous district for the past 2 years. We only consider completed applications, and there is an application fee, which is $150. As of 1/15, we opened what we call an interest form, and the reason we opened the interest form was because we were getting a lot of calls. As I said, Lovejoy ISD is a destination district, and we felt like people were saying, well, will you let us know when the application process, opens? Can we have more information? And we just don't have the personnel to answer those, and so we opened up an interest form back October when we returned from the fall break. Since then, until 1/15, we had 292 interest forms completed, and these are the interested grade levels. As you can see, our kindergarten number has doubled. 46 interest forms were completed all the way up there. Once again, probably close to 100 at secondary there, but so quite a bit of interest already. In fact, I'm pretty sure that has increased about 10 or 15 since we closed that on the 15th, but just trying to follow what the interest level is there in the Lovejoy Scholar Program.
Does the 292 include existing students?
No, these students currently are not enrolled in Lovejoy ISD. These are just people that are calling saying, I am interested in the program. We ask them to, the grade levels of their children, an email address, those types of things, mainly because most of them would like us to contact them when the application opens. So no, these would be brand new students to the program. Okay. One thing I also want to talk about is, sadly, Lovejoy Scholars do not impact our class sizes. It is not impacted by class size. It is impacted by our finances, okay? Class size is definitely a priority. And we know we want to keep the teachers that we have so we can offer the programs that we have and the opportunities for our kids that we have. So our class size ratios would actually stay the very same. So I use those, when we are staffing on those grade levels, looking at those numbers. This is just to fill in some of those gaps. So we look at those and where are the opportunities for students to come into that grade level. For example, this past year, 3rd and 4th grade, we were not able to take students in most of those grade levels because it was a full class. 4th grade is another one where the class numbers are just high and we could not add students in there. So we waitlisted a lot of students looking to see if those openings occurred. So I want to be pretty clear about that because I think that's a question.
Since it wouldn't impact class sizes, should we consider doing more than 300?
That is something I think that is up for discussion that you can have. Usually what I would kind of talk through is looking at what we have, where the openings are, and perhaps come back and say, these are some openings that we have, and that might be a consideration. Definitely looking at kindergarten, I know as our numbers are going down, last year we had 159, this year we had 192. I'm looking at the 46, not wanting to lose a teacher and not wanting to go down to 159. That would be a teacher that I would want to keep, that we probably could have opportunities. As we look right now, if I go back, I have 29, if you look at that, I have 29 seniors graduating, right? I have 30 openings. Currently, or 32, 268, so I have like 60 openings right now, but I have 292 people wanting to apply. So you have to think about that and weigh that. So for next year, there's 60 openings, basically, and I have 292. So we would have to look and prioritize where we would look at those. And of course, we would not add those if we had to add staff members.
So compelling reasons why you would want to limit it to the 300. What does that look like? If we're adding students based on capacity and class size ratios being maintained.
Correct.
Diminishment of the quality of delivery of education based on capacity of classrooms is not a negative factor.
Correct.
Bringing additional revenue, we can offer more programs.
Correct.
And maintain existing programs. Where are the negatives?
I don't see, I don't see those as negatives. I see, like I may have a classroom right now at 19. So class would probably go up to 22, which I'm already doing a ratio of 23 trying to fill that classroom.
So if you had 22 more on a wait list, you wouldn't bring those 22 in until you had adequate staffing?
Correct.
Otherwise, we don't have capacity.
Correct. That's exactly what I'm saying.
So we're managing that really.
With our current staff.
To the current staff or staff that we may want to bring in based on those economies that you have.
Right. And
Those desired class sizes.
right. And we do leave, and I can honestly tell you, we do leave space available. We had a situation this year at the 5th, 6th grade center, and Amanda can tell you, we had a teacher leave at the very end, and there was another FTE there for her to hire. We looked, we offered, we tried to hire. It just didn't happen. It wasn't anything that was planned. We expected the person to be there, and the class was higher than we had anticipated or that we wanted. But for the most part, that's what we look at. We look at where the openings are and where we could backfill students that are outside the district.
Looking at the demographer's report, it's kind of eye-opening if you look over the next 2 or 3 years.
Correct.
That without filling up capacity, that you're going to have to cut programs.
Right.
Anna, did you maybe want to speak a little bit to where we sometimes will lose scholars, the siblings?
Yes, so, and that's exactly what happened this past year. So for example, we had several scholars wanting to come from Plano, the Murphy, Parker area, and wonderful families that, they had filled the whole application process. However, they had 3 kids. Only one child could get in, their 7th grader, so they could not bring their 1st and 3rd grader into the district. So we did lose them at that grade level because of the siblings could not come in. We waitlisted several of them also, and then I would call them after school started. No one wants to, move their child after they meet their teacher and school started, especially at the elementary level. And so that's where we really watch those ratio numbers.
I partially wanted to clarify that too.
Yeah.
That interest number doesn't always translate into
Correct.
Student scholars within the district.
Right.
Because for reasons such as that.
Right. It's not, the 300, it's not a pretty fit. It truly depends on where we have the openings. We could have probably gotten 300 of them if I had, more openings in 3rd grade, 2nd grade, if we had more teachers in those grade levels.
Well, I guess I'm trying to understand the relevance of if we're not negatively affecting things and we're providing more opportunity, what is the relevance of the cap associated with this program? I don't really see the relevance of the cap other than, I don't know.
Well, I think a couple of years when we discussed, I think that there had been a cap. I know before I came, there was a cap of 350, and over the past years, we've been talking about that, and so it was lowered to 300, from what I understand. I'm not, I think that's something that we can, definitely revisit, and I'm not sure if a cap is needed. I look at it more as where the openings are and where I can fill in students.
Sounds like regardless of the cap, we could have brought in more kids, but
Correct.
because they were desired to be here, we just couldn't do it because we didn't have capacity. So you're managing that.
Right.
And if that 300 keeps us from adding somewhere we could add a teacher, it seems to be counterintuitive in some cases.
And it is, because what we want to do is we want to hire staff early, so it helps with our staffing early so we can get the highly qualified. I mean, right now, we're doing the job fairs, career fairs, all those. If we need to hire, it's the time to do it. So that's one reason, as I go on through this presentation, trying to show you the timeline of when I would want to accept scholars, get the application process.
So even as a board, if you desire to come back to it and have further discussion, either about adjusting the cap or looking at opportunity at certain grade levels, I think what Ms. Koenig is trying to express that this evening, knowing whether you've approved as a board, the program to continue for next year, even knowing that that's within 300 would allow her to begin that process of formally having people apply and work that process so that we are in the position to make sure that our staffing is in alignment with our student enrollment, and that process begins at this point in the school year. And we are always happy to bring this back with further information if you desire and for further discussion.
I, for one, would desire to do that. I'd like to know a little bit more about the scholars program. I'd also like to revisit some of the pros and cons that we discussed in the past. You can go back and look at past meetings. Some of that was based on the tuition program and what we could tolerate in terms of the amount that we needed in tuition. So some of that was based on dollars. And so I think we've kept some of that coming forward. But I would like to revisit that. I'd like to take a look.
Okay.
So tonight, we're looking for guidance and direction on continuing the program. And then to Marvin's point, and I think that as we go through this process, you'll update us further on numbers, desired numbers,
Right.
capacity,
And where we-
and give us guidance on, do we need a limit? Does 300 need a limit? Does it need to be 4? Does it need to be 2? Whatever
Right.
that number is.
Okay.
And I guess, Marvin, what you're saying is you'd like to have an open mind about hearing about that and discussion based on what the recommendations are, and then reestablishing discussion around pros and cons?
Yeah, that's, just have an open mind about this program. We haven't visited the CAPS in a while, and we haven't really visited the pros and cons of the program in general, and what's it doing for us.
I'd like to just add my thoughts tonight, given we had some concerns expressed from public comment. It's just that, I appreciate that we're doing this early, because I know the scholar program can have some trepidation for those scholar families, is because they need to be able to make a decision.
Right.
And so I appreciate that you're doing it early and that we can make these decisions on hiring. I think the scholar program is additive to our district. I think these families want to be here, and I think they show up. And so while it is true that board members represent district children, they also represent those that we admit to the program under a board program like the Scholars, and we are all leopards. And we want excellent educational experiences for every child enrolled in Lovejoy. And I think that this is one of, just reflecting on the budget conversation that we had this morning, and the demographic conversation that we had this morning, and the legislative conversation, not this morning, I don't know what time it is, it's like 11 p.m.
Yeah. It's almost morning.
I hope that puts into some level of relief the very tight, small box that we're operating within, and that this is one of the levers that we have available to us, and that this is a smart decision to utilize the capacity to build our student population. It gives us economy of scale, which is integral to maintaining our academic, fine art, and athletic programs. And I think what we heard tonight is assurances from the administration that they are looking at class sizes as they do this admittance. And so I would be in support of continuing the current program.
I also think this is a proactive program, because more than likely, there's going to be vouchers, and we control this program and the kids we let in right now.
Yeah, that's true. And we know that surrounding districts have opened up out-of-district transfers. In fact, they're using our application to do that. So we've seen that, many surrounding districts there.
That's the sincerest form of flattery.
Yeah, I guess so.
One comment, I just want to, I'm concurring with Barrett's comments about, I remember when we put caps in place, part of that was dealing with administrative burden around the program when it had been changing from a tuition to non-tuition back. I mean, there were lots of things changing over the last many years around the program that might or might not be applicable. And if we have the kind of the process in place now where we can handle a larger number and it makes sense from a budgeting perspective, and we're not seeing any negative impact to student experiences, and we can in fact maybe enhance some student opportunities and experiences, we should revisit that and come to the right number. 300 seems somewhat arbitrary at this point. So if we need to move forward to keep on timelines and do what's right for the program and the families and the budgeting process, fully support it. But if we can do more and we need to reevaluate it altogether, I would support that also.
Okay.
And also, if my understanding is correct, the Scholars Program doesn't rely on our transportation.
Correct.
Which transportation is a big loss leader.
That's correct, yes. They provide their own transportation.
So
That's correct.
tonight, if we can formulate a proposal to give them guidance to continue the program with the open item of the cap is probably maybe not a part of the motion and to be discussed as they evaluate these applications and come back to us. Is that a reasonable approach?
So with that, I move that we continue the Lovejoy Scholar Program, that we proceed with the administration's recommendation regarding applications, and that we may revisit caps in the future.
Okay.
Is that long enough?
Second.
So moved.
Does that
Julie
work?
McLaughlin. I think that works fine. Do
Okay.
y'all feel clear that that gives you the guidance you need to perform your
Yes,
duties?
and as you can see, the timeline, it works perfectly because our returning students, we have all their information. The application is not difficult to do and to, assess our students, so yes.
What you're hearing
Yeah.
from the board is, without knowing more, we don't know what a cap looks like, but a
Okay.
strong desire to maximize student opportunity for kids, so long as it maintains the integrity of our class sizes and our programs. I think that's what
Okay.
you're hearing.
Okay.
And the motion is to approve,
Okay.
based on what I heard, the continuation of the program with an open mind.
Okay.
So moved by Julie McLaughlin, second by Marvin
Second.
Bobo. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, item 23, consider an act on a resolution for the emergency closures due to weather.
Yes, that is, as you recall, on January 9th and January 10th, due to inclement weather, we had to shut down school. The kids were home with y'all. And basically, I'm asking for you to consider an act on a resolution so that we can make our employees whole. We had people that weren't able to come into work because the school was closed. And so we really do not want them to experience a reduction in pay. So we're asking if you approve the resolution, then we would make them whole, so there would not be a reduction in pay for these employees. Questions?
Questions?
We've done this previously.
Yes.
So moved.
So moved, Jason James.
Second.
Amy Smith, second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for bringing that forward. Cabinet reports?
Wanted to let you know of some changes that TEA has made regarding tuition rates for pre-K 4. In the past, the state has capped that, so we were told could not charge above that rate, so it varied from district to district. What we were charging really was not even covering the cost. But we have students that qualify for services for pre-K 4. And so we're fortunate here in Lovejoy that we have space so that we could offer tuition as well. So we are looking at, since we now can increase that rate, we're looking at increasing that for the 25-26 school year. And it will still be significantly lower than what a family is paying if they're in the pre-K 3 class. So I just wanted you to be aware that some changes are coming forward with that. Okay.
What do you anticipate the timeline on? Is that something that would need board approval, or is it more of just an informational?
Just information. I can just give you some numbers right now. So for our 3-year-old class for tuition, we do have some students that qualify for that through our early childhood special education programming, and we do need to have a class where we put them with typically developing peers, so it works out well for us that we have tuition-based students in that, and that cost is $7,800 annually rate for that. What we have been charging, because the state capped it for our 4-year-old pre-K class, same hours, $5,410. So we're looking at increasing that by about $1,000, so it would go up to $6,410. And what Thomas and I have figured, we're close to where we would be closer to breaking even with that.
So that would be still lower than what the 3s that have been paying previous. So it higher than what the current 4s were paying, but still lower than what they had been used to.
Right, yeah. We have not been charging a deposit for that 4-year-old class like we have the 18 through 23 month 2-year-old and 3-year-old. We're going to charge a deposit of $350 and looking at increasing that tuition to $650, so $1,000 overall.
Should we try to get it closer to what the true market is?
Well, we did poll neighboring pre-K4 programs, and we really did not want to exceed that because we do compete with some of these programs. So it was pretty close to the 6,400, so that's why we're opting, we were afraid to do that, so.
But they're getting a lot of value for that 6,400.
Absolutely. We have 3 sections right now for our pre-K4. Thank you.
So good evening. So earlier tonight, we introduced one of our new hires on the business service team, and now we're going to introduce another one. So some of you may know who she is. This is Jennifer Thompson. She is our executive assistant to the CFO. So she is a Lovejoy resident and has been for 20 years. She does have a son that's a senior right now in the class of 2025, and she is currently the booster president for the Lovejoy Cross Country Track and Field Booster Club. She does come with 25 years of experience working in the medical device industry. So we are super excited to have her as part of the team, and she started with us right before the break. December 16th, she's already hit the ground running. She's already taken a lot of pressure off of my plate, so I'm very thankful to have her on board, and we're excited that we have a complete team and some of the work and the work that we're going to accomplish as a team. So some other updates are our normal tax updates. So December was a good month in tax collection. So overall, almost $22 million of tax collected for the month, and we earned almost $75,000 in interest earnings, investment income. So right now, to date, we had budgeted roughly $450,000 in investment income, and we're at currently year-to-date about $370,000. So we're going to exceed that investment income budget. That will definitely help support our budget. And then also a quick update on student nutrition. So every 5 years, the Texas Department of Agriculture completes an administrative and procurement review of the program, and they completed that audit early part of December. So the procurement review resulted in 0 findings. However, the administrative review did result in 1 finding. The finding that resulted from that administrative review is mainly around the revenue ratio as it relates to our non-program revenue versus our overall revenue. So essentially, because our primary school and intermediate school are the only schools that are on the National School Lunch Program, and we have such a low population that are served through that program for free and reduced, the ratio works in such a way where they want to ensure that the ratios are comparable when we look at the non-program revenues to non-program costs, or program revenue to program costs, and non-program revenues to non-program costs. So essentially, this is only a corrective action, and there's no fiscal action required. So what we're exploring is the corrective actions that we got to look at our non-program revenues in our secondary and look to increase our revenue to ensure that the revenue ratios are consistent with what they require. So we're diving in to look at to see how we can look at different items and minimally increase those items to help generate additional revenue for the rest of this year. Happy to answer any questions. Okay.
And just a quick update, I'm very, very excited that we have filled most of our positions this year. We currently do have a computer science teacher. Mr. Wheeler did make an offer, however, person was super excited, but our housing here is very, very expensive and couldn't afford to live in the area. So we are still looking for a computer science teacher, just to make y'all aware of that. Our STEM coordinator, also electrician, we were excited. We did hire an HVAC person. And of course, the past month or so, we have filled some of our custodians and student nutrition specialists, but are also looking for them. So those are just some of our current openings that we have.
So before I jump into our brief update, on behalf of the District Support Services, we did want to thank you guys for your unwavering commitment and dedication to not only the school district, but also the community in which the district serves. And so going along with the theme tonight, I know we had a dinner for recognition, and we had some nice words that were said, but the guys and gals in our department are very thankful for your leadership and support. So wanted to start off with that. So just a quick update. We did have a little bit of winter weather event that took place, as Ms. Koenig said, on the 9th and the 10th. We did have some minimal damage that we received around the district, very minimal. We did have a sidewalk awning here at this campus over at the administration building that did collapse. Wasn't really designed for the weight of the wet snow that we received. We had a couple roof leaks at each gym over at Willow Springs. Those were just roof drains. The seals gave up with the cold weather. That was an easy repair. And then we did have a little bit of landscape damage, as you can see in that bottom right-hand corner over at LHS. Appeared to be some trucks and UTVs that slipped off the road and off the parking lot, accidentally out into maybe a drainage area. So it was a complete accident, I'm sure. It was pretty treacherous out there. For safety and security, Director Littlefield and our tactical drone operator, George Jaquez, presented the tactical drone program over at Willow Springs, trying to drum up a little business and interest with some of those kiddos for our UAV practicum classes that are offered over at the high school. So just kudos to them. The kids were highly engaged. It's a hands-on opportunity too for Casey and for George to get over there and do some cool things with students. And as a follow-up to our Drone as a First Responder program partnership that we have with the City of Lucas, all school marshals have received their visual observer training, and that's a requirement from the FAA for us to utilize the program as it's designed for safety reasons. And so there's been lots of training, lots of momentum that has been gained through the short time that we've had this program in collaboration with the City of Lucas. Members of the Marshall team also met with Mary Mullen and Crystal Gaddy from the curriculum team, and to discuss future collaboration that they can have and integrate with students for that practicum in the courses that are offered over at the high school to build on some of that momentum. So we just wanted to highlight that. And then, as mentioned earlier in the district improvement plan, there has been CRACE training that's been completed by over 300 members of the staff here within Lovejoy for the fall semester. And then last week on the 15th, there was also a coordinated effort between the district PTO and the school marshals to offer that out to community members. And so that was a success. And we will continue to offer those throughout the spring. Just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of that. And that's the conclusion of my update. Thank you.
All right, Student Services Cabinet Report. Have a couple exciting events to update you on. First of all, January 31st, Demo Day. The 5th grade students at Sloan Creek will make their way to Lovejoy High School. The 5th grade class will be transported by bus during the day, a little before lunchtime. Sloan Creek students will experience rotations where they will see different presentations from art, choir, orchestra, and band. And after viewing those presentations, the students will be more prepared to choose the best program for them and will develop an awareness of vertical expectations within their respective programs. So this year they'll be going to the high school, and while they'll be staying at Sloan Creek next year, right, they will be getting to select their respective fine arts class. And so we thought this year, taking them to the high school, seeing those head directors, and with Principal Wheeler in agreement, they're actually going to be able to see that K through 12 vertical alignment of that program. And so and they were in agreement where it's similar as if you're taking a sixth grader and talking to them and they're considering athletics, well, to kind of see how it projects, seeing Coach Dodge in our varsity team practice would be a good idea if that's something that they want to do long-term. And so we're excited about that small change in fifth grade demo day, and we're working hard right now to ensure logistics and things like that are planned, and then our program directors and our kids will help execute those examples. And then the even bigger day coming up that involves a big piece of this district. Before I go into it, just a special shout out to Mr. Percival with transportation help and his team. But then you also have child nutrition, you have safety, you have nursing, and all those things have to be very carefully put in place and well thought through from a planning standpoint. And then the campuses and those leadership teams get to actually plan the meaningfulness of the day as they inherit their incoming students, right? And so, as many of you know, LISD Bump Up Day, 4th grade students head to Sloan Creek, 6th grade students to Willow Spring, 8th grade students to Lovejoy High School, and that is all within that same time frame. So a lot of moving parts, and we're ensuring that with our time windows, that there's plenty of time for them to eat lunch, because that's a big deal. They get to sit in their future cafeteria, eat lunch with their friends, and then experience different things that day, right? So we talked about where they were going, and so LISD students will be attending a new campus next year, will participate in LISD Bump Up Day, and this is on the 7th. Students will eat lunch at their future campus and experience customized activities, build excitement and awareness, and that has been out there in some district communications as well. So those are the updates. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Owens and board. Again, we are so grateful for your service, your selfless service, and your governance. We were excited last week to have you serve on a panel for our superintendent student council, and greatly appreciate your generous dedication of time to their learning. So that is a group of high school students representing 9th through 12th grade, and they decided at the beginning of the school year that they wanted to focus on leadership. And we have been privileged to have our community first responders, we've had our police chiefs, and the FBI, Collin County Sheriff's Office, and as well as our police departments. And then we were also privileged to have the 3 mayors, Mayor Lessner, Mayor Bain Brooks, and Mayor Kirkendall, and just incredible, and how fitting to have you all as community leaders during Board Appreciation Month. And I have received such positive feedback from our students. And one thing we talked about at the conclusion of the meeting, that we hope someday when they are community members and have families, that they, whether it's here in Lovejoy or somewhere else, that you all will serve as a model for how important it is to be involved, be engaged, and serve your community. And so hopefully someday some of them will be school board members, because it is such an important role. I also wanted to emphasize my appreciation for district leadership, campus leadership on all of the reports and updates this evening, including the district and campus reports. And something that very much stood out to me were our core values. Our core values of kids come first, and One Heart, One Lovejoy, best today, better tomorrow. You see a commitment to continuous improvement. You see a commitment to making sure our students are having the best possible experience, and that we're doing that through a collaborative approach as a team. And then as well, our priorities, my superintendent priorities, your board priorities of safety, people, learning, and innovation. We also saw that as a thread throughout much of what we heard this evening, and so grateful for that strategic, intentional work. We have the right people doing the right work, and so committed to making sure our students have an outstanding experience, and that we serve this precious and uniquely special community.
Thank you, Ms. Cordell. Ms. Taylor, any public comments related to non-agenda items this evening? All right. Then we will be adjourned.